Dr. Rawlins is with it.
I've got 4 billion people, half the world's population.
I've got a lot of... when it comes to quarries and crap, exactly. And then I sort of asked John.
Add those in then?
Yeah, I can.
So they're putting in like 11 different, aren't they? It's the nutritious.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely evil.
Yeah.
Just that, right? In the bottom there.
So this is partly what I had.
When they put in the Bulls Green Lake, they destroyed the old gamekeeper, whatever as well, plus another load of houses. This one, gone in a dereliction.
It's
been
food, right?
But
The law running
that will dust and
sort of do.
whatever they say over and affect all of Ashenwood.
yes.
One of the oldest deciduous woods.
It's the largest, the only ancient.
Exactly.
In the whole of I do the
Yeah.
It's like yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, so sort of compassionate farming, all of this sort of stuff.
There.
So one of the things I had at the end.
No, because
No mitigation policy.
The green energy.
there are a bunch of...
Yeah, but like this, that's been keen on this for like 50 years.
Yeah, been a regulation committee,
Even now.
But luckily,
which I took.
Nuclear, we've got to have some.
there's the Lib Dem
The other thing was
Don't go for that.
like being traditional ways of life.
Oh yeah. Right.
downstairs.
Yeah. So rewilding, reforestation, that sort of thing. Do you know about the Planetary Boundaries?
Because the campaign.
Okay. So
It's such a wide, so many.
yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Is this actually working?
Yes.
Yep. Hello, everyone. We are running slightly late, but do forgive us. I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping. If you hear a fire alarm, there is no scheduled fire drill tonight. So if you hear a fire alarm, it is actually a real fire alarm. Please go down the stairs that you came up. If they're blocked, there's another set of stairs that runs down the other side of this wall, and you'll follow the signs. You'll see the little green person running out the door. Follow those signs, and there are assembly points outside the front of the building and to the rear of the building. Please don't use the lift. We did get it working, but unfortunately it seems to have conked out this evening anyway. But if by some miraculous thing it does start working when there's a fire, please don't use it, as it's liable not to function again. If you need the toilet, there is a toilet out the door here. Turn to your right, and then to your left, you will find a toilet there. It's slightly unusual tonight because we did not have a town council meeting in September due to the sad passing of Her Majesty the Queen. So tonight we have a number of people who were wishing to speak at September's meeting, who I have here on a piece of paper. Some of them may not be here, and we'll have to see how we do with that as we move through the evening. But the first part of the evening is public participation. And so I have Alison, who wishes to speak about the basketball court. Are you here, Alison? I would take that as a no. So we'll move on to Charlotte, who wished to speak about Plus CIC. Charlotte, are you here? No. So Dawn Deacon, Catch the Bus Month? No. This could be the quickest public participation we've ever had, ladies and gentlemen. Colette Barnard, who wishes to speak about the NAT project. I think you're here, Colette. Thank you. If you'd like to come to the end of the table here, there's a microphone, which I hope will be working, although I can't see where the actual speaker is. Please to address the council. Speakers, I'd like to ask you if you could remain for 3 minutes only at the table. Thank you very much.
Okay. I thought I was going to sit at the back and hide when I read this. Okay. Hi, my name is Colette Barnard. I'm the founder and the director of Sweet Track Counselling Services in town. In 2015, we had a number of student counsellors who needed a placement, and so we began a low-cost counselling agency. A grant from Mendip of £1,000 funded this sustainable project. Since then, we have provided 3,500 low-cost counselling sessions, saving an estimated £87,500 to the local community. I think this was a well-invested initial £1,000. Our expertise is mental health. Mental health is an issue and it is increasing, particularly with our young adults. This is nothing unique to Glastonbury. 18 months ago, we started a trial called the Nature Assisted Therapy Project for 14 to 29-year-olds. We called it the NAP Project, and we offer one-to-one sessions and group sessions to young adults within our communities. We currently have 25 sessions a week with vulnerable youth. I personally know the effects of losing a young person to suicide. Their death slams into one's psyche with a force that can never be forgotten. It forces into their families, their friends, and it destabilises the community that surround them. Sorry. Every day in the UK, an average of 94 young adults end their life. Today, 58 males and 36 females will take their own lives. Another 94 souls tomorrow, another 94 souls on Thursday. And this trend is increasing. 2 of our own NAP clients have attempted to end their lives this month. It is real, and I feel it's avoidable. We need at the moment within our organisation qualified therapists to work with this complexity of clients. So for the first time in our organisation, we need funding. For each £1,000 that we raise, we can offer 68 counselling sessions. Or for the £1,000, we can have a short-term support group for these young adults, or we provide support for their families. For each £10,000, we can run these groups or these sessions for a whole year. If we raise £100,000, we will rent or buy our own local land for this project specifically because working in nature supports mental health. We need to meet the needs of these young adults in a more dynamic way today. At the moment where we are, we have a room shortage for our sessions. We have burst the seams of our own venues. We are supported by 2 local groups within the community, but we need now a minimum of 2 extra rooms at a maximum of £5 an hour rent. And we don't have an office. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Colette. So now, by the wonder of science, I think you can hear me through a speaker. Julie Tucker, are you here? Thank you. Julie.
The basketball courts is here.
Right.
Sorry, I'm late.
We'll come back to you in a moment, if that's all right. So, Julie Tucker, you will be speaking about street volunteer driver service. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak today. I'm here representing a new service provision which we have just set up in street in the last couple of months. I started in August and we did our first live journeys following recruitment of volunteers in the last 10 days. So far we've managed a really nice pickup just within the street area. The volunteer driver service is aimed at the elderly and vulnerable people of our community who do not have access to a car, are unable to use the bus or walk to appointments, social groups, shopping, and all the other necessities of life. Many members of the joint communities who would love to be able to get involved with activities, but due to the county council cutbacks, no longer have funding for expensive taxis to take them there. With the bus cuts that we are all aware of as well, this is becoming increasingly more difficult. During the past 2.5 years, many of these people have become very isolated, lost their confidence and their independence, and the support systems that they had just aren't there anymore, and they do not wish to or cannot rely on busy family members to ferry them around. Together with the community centre at Crispin Hall in Street, we've worked really hard to set this up. We've managed to get initial funding from Street Parish Council, from Somerset Community Partnership Foundation, from Community Trade Union, and from Walton Parish Council as well. The community centre themselves are providing our office funding with space, computer, Wi-Fi, email, banking and everything. At the moment, that is their contribution to the service. I've been employed for 16 hours a week to get the service up and running and to coordinate the service, bearing in mind that many members who will use the service are not online, and telephone is going to be their main point of contact. We feel that the service would really only work very, very well with the joint help of Glastonbury Town Council. Many of the services for our elderly and vulnerable community are split between Glastonbury and Street. Many of the residents of Street are registered with Glastonbury Surgery, which is some considerable distance from the bus stop. And likewise, there are many more dentists in Street, especially the NHS dentists, than there are in Glastonbury. This same goes to all the shops, community groups and services like the Sweet Track Centre. We're already receiving calls from volunteers who live in Glastonbury and wish to do some driving from us, and likewise we are receiving calls from quite desperate residents of Glastonbury who would like to use the service as well. We have been funded so far with from Street Parish Council to the sum of £5,000 for the year. We've also received £7,000 from Somerset Community Partnership and £3,000 from Community Trade Union. We have on board Walton Parish Council as well, although their donation is not as significant due to the significantly less people that live within their parish. We will be looking for match funding from Glastonbury Town Council to Street Parish Council's funding. So we'd be looking for a £5,000 grant. And we would be hoping to be able, that would be an ongoing contribution, subject to regular reviews of our performance and the number of users that we have. Costs to the users, we are able, because of that, to keep the costs really quite low. We are charging a £2 per journey administration fee, together with a mileage fee of 60p per mile. This means that instead of an average taxi journey by Sainsbury's to the other side of Street, instead of it costing about £10 return in the taxi, it's going to cost them about £2.60. This is a significant saving for those older community members and more vulnerable who are on a fixed income at the moment. I know that the funding won't be decided tonight. It is to go to the Finance Committee in November. However, I did want you to all be aware of it and have the opportunity to ask any questions prior to that meeting. So I'm going to leave some leaflets here. They've got all my contact details on. Please do email, telephone and speak to me if you've got any questions beforehand. But that's all for tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Alison, if you'd like to speak about the basketball court, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just a quick one.
Yeah, I've just come here today because I came here last time, but it was cancelled. So just to really get a follow up on if there was any sort of anything done to get in the basketball nets and hoops put up for the remainder of what's already been done at the basketball courts for the children.
Well, thank you, Alison, for your question. We don't normally reply, but I am going to look towards the chair of the Youth Provision Committee and see if Michael, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Yes.
Hi.
Hello. I'd spotted you a couple of times in town, but never had the opportunity to chat. So what we've done, Abbey Park, what we're going to do there is the tarmacking for that area is going to be slightly smaller than a standard court. So our idea was that it will be a practice basketball and netball court, and it will have new posts in at each end. And the problem is that sort of slope down to the side going down to the football ground. So there was only a limited amount of money from Mendip, and so all of what we need will take up that. So that bit can have tarmac and 2 new posts and nets at the proper height. The St Benedict's one, because those walls are already painted, which we really like, we don't want to sort of interfere with the tarmac that's already down there. That's the bottom end of Benedict Street courts. Yeah. So we will buy, so the youth committee will buy 2 new backboards and hoops.
With nets?
Yeah, and have them fitted there. So we'll do it in such a way that it sits on top of the wall and projects forward. So we don't have to break the tarmac and we don't have to obscure the paintings on either side.
Right.
So that's the best we can do at the moment.
So it'll be there and there. Right, fantastic. Have we got a rough?
Fairly soon. At the next youth meeting, we'll award the contract for that one. So that's as much as I can say.
When's the next youth meeting, please? Do we know?
7th of November.
It will, but that meeting to award the contract, Chair, will go into confidential session because it's to do with contracts.
Okay. So it should be in place pretty soon, is all I can say.
Right. So how would I chase that up to know sort of what's sort of going on with that?
We can tell you.
Tell me. Would I need to attend the next meeting?
If you liaise with Sarah Marks in the office, who I believe you've booked one of your slots through previously,
yes.
She clerks the Youth Provision Committee. So she'll be able to, that's the committee that's paying for this work and is allocating the Section 106 funding. So if you liaise with her, she'll be able to tell you what she can. But until the point where we've awarded a contract, we obviously can't speak about exactly when it's going to be or who's going to do it or how much it's going to cost.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
So,
Is that all right?
absolutely, Alison, thank you. So it does pay to keep on talking to us. Eventually things happen.
Thank you.
Josephine Robinson, Plant-Based Treaty.
Good evening. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you. Our natural world is rapidly changing before our eyes, a world of wonder that we share with more than 8 million species of plants and other animals, a world that we depend on for our food, water, air, indeed life itself. Our natural world is the most precious gift we have, and we must defend it at all costs. Climate breakdown is far more intense than many scientists expected. I'm sure we all recall UK experiencing record-breaking 40-degree heat waves, drought, and crop failures this summer. In Pakistan, catastrophic floods exacerbated by melting glaciers tragically submerged a third of the country, displacing more than 30 million people. As we all know, Glastonbury itself is under threat of severe flooding from the Somerset moors. Glastonbury Town Council took bold action in 2019 by declaring a climate emergency and pledging to become climate neutral by 2030. Glastonbury's brilliant environmental charter already promotes energy saving measures green buildings, water conservation and the preservation of green spaces. And I urge you now to tackle the giant cow in the room that no one wants to talk about. Even if we ended fossil fuels today, greenhouse gas emissions from the food system alone would raise temperatures by more than 1.5 degrees centigrade. Therefore, it is imperative to make immediate cuts to emissions from both fossil fuels and agriculture to meet our legal obligations under the Paris Agreement. We are currently on track to reach 1.5 degrees around 2030 and a catastrophic 2 degrees around 2040. Cuts to methane emissions are our best hope of preventing temperature rises above 1.5 over the next 25 years, of which 32%, the largest source, comes from farming animals, which is also the main driver of deforestation due to land clearing for cattle grazing and animal feed crops. In fact, animal farming takes up nearly 80% of global agricultural land and yet produces just 18% of calories. And the IPCC reports that a plant-based diet is the optimal diet to fight climate change. We need the government to redirect subsidies away from damaging farming practices and towards plant-based solutions. Will Glastonbury show leadership once again and join the Conservative-led Haywards Heath Town Council, who in August this year became the first town in Europe to endorse the Plant-Based Treaty? The Plant-Based Treaty asks national governments to negotiate a global treaty to halt the expansion of deforestation attributed to animal agriculture and promote a shift towards healthy plant-based diets. It is supported by MPs from political parties including the Conservatives, Labour, Liberal Democrats and the Greens. I urge you, councillors, representatives of Glastonbury, to endorse the Plant-Based Treaty and strengthen Glastonbury's environmental charter. Promoting the benefits of healthy, sustainable plant-based foods can play a key role in reducing the town's consumption-based greenhouse gas emissions. Working apart, humans have been a force so powerful that we have destabilised Earth's support systems. However, working collectively and at speed, we are powerful enough to save our planet, not just for us, but for all life on Earth. Please eat plants, plant trees, and endorse the Plant-Based Treaty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, I have Chris Lavis, if you're happy to speak. I'm not sure what the subject is.
You'll think of something.
What I was going to talk about. Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. There's been a lot of talk lately about traveller sites in Glastonbury. I know we're trying to clean up Glastonbury, which is very commendable. Mendip District Council have a responsibility to provide a site, because they've been trying for so long now, to provide a site for travellers. Now, a lot of you who were councillors in the last session will remember that County Councillor Liz Lation quite often said the biggest problem is if the Mendip District Council tried to buy land for a traveller site, if the farmer got wind that that was what it was for, the first thing they did was withdraw it from the market. So the problem is Mendip cannot find a site. What have we heard lately? The old traveller site down at Beckery, Mendip want to sell it off, get some money. But unfortunately, there are still travellers down there who are there for a considerable period of time now because their human rights action a few years back meant that they had a stay of execution until the children had finished school. Now, if Mendip District Council are prepared to spend money and what will be the new unified council of Somerset are prepared to spend money on a site, there's a site there. It belongs to Mendip. Why not develop it? and save a lot of problems. Now then, why don't you, I say develop it, right, develop it. Put in the facilities that are required and let the travellers then manage it themselves as per a housing association. You can have fixed sites, fixed pitches, and so many transient ones. That will then mean that Mendip, as it is now, and further on, Glastonbury has done its bit to provide the facilities, which means then that all the rest of the ragtag and bobtails that are cluttering up the town can be moved on. But unfortunately, we have a problem. Who's going to enforce it? The enforcement officers at Mendip? Sorry, but they only work 9 to 5, 5 days a week. They don't work after 5 o'clock at night, and they don't work at weekends. So what happens? All the vans disappear during the day, parked up here, there, and everywhere, on the estates, everywhere, and then at night, bang, they're back there again. So something needs to be done. Now, I suggest that our Mendip district councillors and county councillors look at this as an idea quite seriously. And then, we, as an area, then the provision is made and we can then enact the law which said if there was a site provided, then the council is then able to move them on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to look to, as county and district have been mentioned together, I'm going to look to a joint county and district councillor, Nick Cottle, whether he would like to respond.
Well, it'll be a very quick response, Chris, because you referred to Councillor Lyshon, who was here before. I think you have to remember that every single possible thing has been looked at in one way or another. And you can be sure that something will be found at some stage. I think the people of the who are on the board, which I don't believe we're allowed to mention at this moment in time, will have stuff in the future. So watch that space is what I will say to you. Okay?
I'm suggesting that that is an area which the council already owns, and therefore they can then ensure that they could develop it properly.
Well, Chris, I think that, thank you for bringing it up. This council will talk to Mendip about your very idea and see what's possible there, because I agree they already own the land. Seems ridiculous to sell it when they need to find land. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, councillors, we have a hybrid meeting tonight where we will be doing some of the things that we would have liked to have done in September. And one of those is extremely important and pertinent to the council. Many of the councillors will know, and I'm sure many members of our community will know, that the former mayor, Denise Abbott, passed away prior to our September meeting. And we were going to honour Denise at that meeting, and unfortunately, because of the passing of the Queen, we were unable to. But it is with sadness, and I'm pleased also to say that Tim Hopkinson Ball, who was with Denise during her mayoralty, as, now I'm going to get this right or wrong, escort or consort? Both. As escort and consort. Well, I got it right then. So I wonder, Tim, whether you would kindly say a few words about Denise, and following that, it will be my honour to light the Glastonbury Unity candle, and if you could join me then in a silent minute, to observe the silent minute for Denise Abbott. But first, Tim.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. What I'm going to do this evening is give an abbreviated version of the obituary that I gave at Denise's funeral in August. It's a little shorter, but hopefully it is appropriate. As most of you know, I was Denise's consort during her time as Deputy Mayor in 2017, and her consort and chaplain during her time as Mayor in 2018. Most of us here this evening knew Denise through her time as a councillor, or perhaps when she studied art at Strode College, or maybe from when she first arrived in Somerset. when Denise lived briefly in Evercreech before settling in Beer Lane. Denise was a dear and in many ways an exceptional friend who I first got to know some 30 years ago. So I thought I should say a few words about her earlier life, as the elderly Denise you all knew was not the Denise I first met in 1992, when she was in her mid-40s. At that time, she was difficult to keep up with, creative, energetic and forthright, and often with a wicked smile on her face, Denise played the role of a bossy yet loving elder sister to perfection. At university, aside from her degree course, she got a first from Cambridge, Denise loved drama. Travelling abroad during the summer vacations with a Shakespearean troupe, she spent time in Italy, where she was taken under the wing of an Italian cardinal, who personally escorted Denise around museums and galleries in Rome. It was then that she acquired a lifelong love of the Italian language. Although Denise toyed with staying on at university, she instead joined the civil service, where she worked for the Commission for Racial Equality. Gradually becoming interested in politics, Denise actively involved herself with the Liberal Party and remained sporadically engaged with politics for the rest of her life. Leaving London, Denise moved on to Lancaster, where on Castle Hill she established The Ordinary, an 18th century style eating house where authentic food, costume and a period environment were all lovingly recreated. It was her time at Lancaster which led Denise into professional historical reenactment. Moving to the Cambridgeshire Fens, she worked in the Elizabethan kitchens at Kentwell Hall, before moving on to Peterborough and Ely Cathedrals, where Denise set up educational programmes for schools. It was at Ely that I first got to know Denise. At that time, she inhabited a tumble-down cottage at Ramsey Mearside, a hamlet in the middle of nowhere, and I remember my first visit rather clearly, as in the middle of the kitchen, slightly elevated amongst the chaos, there was a chaise longue upon which 3 sleepy dogs were sprawled. Dogs were perhaps Denise's greatest love. She could often be seen walking her dogs in Abbey Park here in town. Denise always took on rescue animals, often with problems, but she had infinite patience and never gave up on them. Not long after meeting Denise, I began working with her as an historical reenactor at Wisbeach Castle, where she had created a number of educational days for primary school children, including Tudor, World War II and Victorian experiences. The Victorian day, upstairs, downstairs, was her most popular. I played Harold the footman, who Denise insisted had a drink problem and had been demoted from his position as butler, while Denise herself was very much in charge, playing Mrs. Tufts, the housekeeper. Her back ramrod straight, clothed in a steel grey dress, with her hair in a tight bun and a stick at her side. She genuinely put the fear of God into children who had rarely met with such a stern figure. Not long will I forget the day when one of the pupils actually fainted in Denise's presence. Our time at Wisbeach was hard work. We provided 4 days of reenactment a week for 60 children a day. But it was tremendously rewarding and something at which Denise was sublimely gifted, effortlessly slipping into different persona and knowing just how to spark a child's imagination. During our years at Wisbeach, I visited Glastonbury on a regular basis and often talked to Denise about its history and traditions. Growing interested herself, she took the plunge before I did, and moving to Somerset, never looked back. Settling in Glastonbury, she threw herself into an art course at Strode College. Producing all manner of mixed media, fabrics and ceramics, Denise excelled at the latter, using the Abbey as inspiration for her final year project. Some of you may recall the strange yet delightful ceramic tree she exhibited in the Abbey orchard. Denise's creativity was something people often overlooked, but she was never happier than when she was bringing an idea to fruition. Elected to the town council and then becoming mayor, Denise decided that I would make a good mayor's chaplain. Now, having arrived in Glastonbury, Denise explored crystals and mediumship, tarot and druidry, and it was the last of these to which she loosely adhered, building a small stone circle in her garden. But she had no true spiritual allegiance other than her love of dogs and her friends. Knowing full well that I was not of a spiritual bent, but as I had a doctorate in theology and religious studies, Denise decided that I was ideally suited to provide her with spiritual counsel once a month. This took the form of a bottle of fizz, rosé for preference, and at our meetings I was expected to give an objective assessment of her mayoral performance, warts and all, which I duly did. In all honesty, it wasn't much different to our years in reenactment, costumes and roles to play, and a message to get out there. Acting as a chauffeur, consort, chaplain and dresser, fixing wonky roads in car parks and toilets became something of a speciality. I had a wonderful year with Denise, as she was both proudly and soberly representing Glastonbury to the wider world, always standing out in the crowd, sporting brightly coloured glasses and a number of impressively feathered hats. At our very last formal engagement, it was at the town hall at Axbridge, and it was a bittersweet occasion, as Denise thought it would probably be her political swan song as both mayor and councillor, and indeed it was. Looking back at our 30-year relationship, I can't in honesty sum it up simply, but I shall try. Denise put the community before herself and always tried to work for the greater good, even if it resulted in a disapproval from others. She was quirky, single-minded, and a generous woman, who could on occasions be difficult, or just as easily be so very kind. I know that she hoped to be reunited with her dogs after her passing, and I sincerely hope that wherever she is, and wherever they are together again and at rest. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say I'm not just grateful for her service to this council and to this town, but for her friendship and for her love. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. So I shall just light the Glastonbury Unity candle. And if you would all please stand with me to observe the silent minute for our dearly departed former Mayor, Denise Abbott. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
I put my name 2 weeks ago down on public participation. You should have my name on your list.
I'm afraid it wasn't there, Alderman, but you're quite happy. I'm quite happy for you to speak in the meeting, Alderman Coles, at any point. So if you would like to speak now, thank you. Yeah.
Evening, councillors. My issue is the allotment down at Lower Side. There's plenty, there's quite a lot of abandoned allotments now. And Leslie, our caretaker, takes people around who are interested in having a plot. And then they come back here and put their names down, and they're told they've got to wait a year before they can start cultivating that plot. Why does it take so long to have a plot down at the allotments? It's been a very bad year this year because of the extreme heat. My potatoes were the size of marbles this year. And a lot of people have problems with their crops. I would like to know, why is it taking a year? Because a lot of people who was interested in going down that allotment site are now going to street and the allotments down at Mere because they're not prepared to wait a year. So I'd like to have that investigated, please. And no doubt you can send me an email. because I got an allotment down there myself. I've had it there for some time now. As I said, it's been very difficult this year because of the extreme heat. I'm sorry I come in so late, but my name should have been on the list 2 weeks ago.
Well, Alderman, you're quite welcome to sit at the chairs here and take part in any part of the meeting you wish.
Yeah, thank you for that, but I got to go and pick someone up.
Okay. Well, thank you, John. We will investigate and get back to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Coles. So, councillors, I now formally declare the meeting open and to receive apologies for absence and notes for reasons given. Connor, I'm looking to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've had apologies from Councillor Terry Napper, Aldermen Ian Tucker and John Keary, and from County Councillor Susanna Hart.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. So, councillors, are there any declarations of interest that you wish to make in relation to the items on the agenda tonight? Yes, councillor.
I'm a member of the Town Deal Board, if that's relevant.
Thank you very much. Yes, councillor Manning.
Town Deal Board, if that's relevant.
Thank you. So I'm also a member of the Town Deal Board, if that's relevant to tonight's meeting. I think that as we go through the agenda, if we reach any item which councillors feel they wish to remind us that they have an interest in, please do it at the start of that item on the sheet as a point of order. So thank you, councillors. We now have to approve and sign as correct the minutes from the meeting of the 9th of August. Now, councillors, you would have received these electronically in your inbox. And I'm not sure whether they're going to be on screen, but I will take you through page 20.
No, they aren't going to be on screen,
Okay.
Your Worship.
Page 26. Page 27. Twenty-eight. Yes, councillor.
Right at the very bottom, it's talking about the standpipe for Fisher's Hill. I was wondering what had happened to that.
Thank you, councillor. May I remind councillors that to stand when speaking. Connor, do you have any response?
That's on the agenda for Property and Assets tomorrow evening, Councillor Ronnie Dougal, for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. So back to 28. Yes, councillor.
So if that's the page with the actions on. I haven't got minutes in front of me.
No, I don't believe it is.
Well, my comment relates to that. I thought perhaps we need some more detail on the actions. Actions arising? Just said actions or something.
I haven't got a list of actions from that meeting. I can certainly circulate them. If you'd like in future for the minutes to actually have a list.
Briefly?
Okay, yes, they haven't ever in the past, but if you'd like them to, then yes, they can be included.
Thank you. Page 29. Page 30. Thirty-one. Councillor Ronnie Dougal.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm on 32.
32.
So I was wondering what had happened with regard to the benches. Now, when I spoke with Connor, he said that only one of the two benches was in the yard, and there are two benches that are not out, and I was wondering what on earth had happened to them and when and where they were going to be reinstated.
Thank you, Connor.
So it was agreed, I believe, at this meeting to delegate to myself in conjunction with councillors and members of the community to site benches, but also the remaining cycle racks. Now, there was only one of the Glastonbury Way benches in the yard, but the other one was actually in St Dunstan's garden. So we have every single bench that was ordered has either already been placed or I can account for it out in St Dunstan's Garden. We located the additional cycle racks, 5 of them. I believe we've brought them back now from the lockup at Commonmoor out here. No progress has been made on exactly where they're going to go, but I have been in discussion with a member of the public who's been doing some consultation via the Climate and Ecological Emergency Advisory Committee as to what members of the public feel, and I'm in discussion with them, and at the point when we're able to, in terms of staff capacity, to start looking at siting benches and bike racks, I'll be doing it in conjunction and consultation with you as councillors.
So when I spoke with you about the bike racks, actually I was giving you the information from that consultation has been happening.
That's fine. I've received more information
I told you the places that people were wanting them.
Yes, I've had more information since, but yeah. Okay. I haven't, in terms of the capacity in the team for the staff, I haven't had a chance yet to have them put out. And even when we're able to start looking into it, because we don't actually own any of the public realm, it will be a case of going and getting permissions. And that is what stopped all 10 cycle racks and the benches being placed in the first place when they were first ordered. But it's something that's on the agenda, it's just not happening right at this very second.
Okay. So I was concerned because the benches that were removed from the high street,
yes,
4 of them have been put back. And when I spoke with you, you only found 1 of them in the yard.
One of the old wood.
Where the second one was, and where they are going to be replaced.
Okay, I don't know the answer to either of those questions, but there's one of them that's down there. I don't know where the other one is. In all the time I've been employed here, I've only ever known of that old wooden bench down there. And I can look into it, and I can liaise with the previous clerk, but I suspect that other one might have been sited somewhere else.
But they are beautiful benches. We used to have 6, we've only got 4 out. Okay. It would be absolutely shocking if one of them had gone somewhere else, and we really do need to chase it up and find them. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. So, Councillors, page 33. Councillor Madhu.
It might be appropriate for me to just comment on the fair trade, because I wasn't in the room at the time. Is it?
Is there a part of the agenda in which you could speak to that, i.e. councillors' announcements or district councillors?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 19, representatives to outside bodies.
Yes, that would be good. Thank you very much. So, councillors, do I have your agreement to sign these minutes off as a true record of the meeting? I will suffice.
Aye.
Thank you very much. So we move on to I'm afraid I covered over my agenda. I do apologise. To receive police report. Is there a police report for tonight?
Unfortunately, Your Worship, I've not had one in writing from the police, and I don't believe we've been joined by a police representative this evening, so I would tend to say no.
Thank you very much. We now moved forward to receive the budgeting monitoring report. Budget monitoring report. Councillors, any comments? Councillor Running.
So I have a question with regard to the town hall lettings. So we reckoned we were going to get 38 grand in, of which we've only got 12 grand. Is the rest of the year, is that going to make up the difference between what we've already got and what we budgeted for?
Thank you. I will defer to the clerk.
There was a period of time where the invoicing wasn't fully up to date. That was a few months ago when the figure presented wasn't quite up to date. I suspect that may not be quite up to date right now. I haven't liaise with the RFO, the finance officer, as to exactly where we are, and the town hall manager, on exactly where we are in terms of forecasting whether we're going to meet that or not. I can certainly ask that question and get back to you, but I don't have an answer right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or notes to the item? Yes, Councillor.
I'm sorry to be a pain, but I'd like to go back to the item about the police report. I just want to say I think we should make some comment to the police about their failure to attend, their failure to provide even a written report. There was something that went out with the emails that was a fine work of fiction. We've had stabbings, we've had at least 2 stabbings recently.
5.
5. But,
5.
you know, any advance kind of thing. It's the situation is becoming absolutely crazy. And the fact that they are not here is very disappointing, to say the least. And I think we should raise that with them.
Well, Councillor, I'm very happy to take that as a motion, if someone wishes to second that. Thank you. All those in favour of writing to the police? That's unanimous, Chair. Thank you very much for raising an important point. Councillors, I will draw us back to the budget monitoring report. Yes, Councillor Manning.
Yes, I just got a question that on the notes, that I think it's note 13, it said that the cost of the EV charging point was exceeding the budget. We don't appear to get any income from the EV charging point. I know that obviously a lot of it is for charging the council vehicle, but it's mentioned that it's for the public use as well. I just wondered whether we were charging the public, because we don't appear to have any income.
Thank you. Councillor Ronnie Dougal?
Yeah, in response, we were given those charging points by Zero Carbon World on the condition that for 5 years we didn't charge for them. Now, I'm not too sure when the 5 years is up, because I think it's only 4 years, isn't it, since Coronade and Abbott installed. I think that was at the beginning of the climate emergency move, at the beginning of the last term. So I think we've got 1 more year to run, and then after that we can start charging for them.
Councillor, does that answer your question enough? Thank you. So, are there any other comments, the budget monitoring report?
I just comment, Your Worship, it's quite impressive. Oh, that one. Oh, okay.
Oh, you can comment on that one next.
I can comment on that one next.
Thank you. Councillors, if there are no further comments, please, we are only required to note this and comment on it. So if you're happy for it to be noted, noted will suffice.
Right.
I now draw our attention to schedule of payments. Councillors, these are on 2 pages. And we have a schedule of payment for September, which we'll deal with first, and then October. Councillor, you should make your observation.
You've got September, haven't you? The paper one is September, online one is October. I think you've got October.
Yeah, you can get that. Those are things to sign.
That was the one they just gave out.
So, Councillor, September's are double-sided.
You're a teacher.
Councillors, if there are no observations or comments, do I have your agreement to sign off the schedule of payment for September? I will suffice.
Right.
Thank you. And I draw your attention to October. Yes, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I know we had a meeting at last week, I think, to discuss the new boiler, and we discussed several quotes that came in. I just noticed there's a charge of £1,350 for the boiler report from James Wilkins. Is that just for the? That was for the.
That, Your Worship, was, I believe, relating to the report that the Climate Emergency and Resilience Officer commissioned from a local plumbing and heating firm back some months ago, but the actual invoice didn't get paid. It fell through our system, and it was picked up by the plumbing and heating company, who kindly reminded us, and it's been paid this time. But I believe that actually relates to work that was done back in May that actually led to the main boiler being condemned.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So the price of condemnment, I think.
I was just noticing that Zoom subscription is still on October's report. Is that?
Yes, so I spoke with the team in the office, and quite a few of them actually use the Zoom subscription to organise meetings with officers at other councils for networking, and also when some of the officers are running projects or completing work. So they asked until I have an option to give them that gives them an unrestricted online meeting to keep the Zoom subscription.
Councillor.
Could I just ask, where is it, the O2 design for St Dunstan's House Community Hub project, £5,050.50. That, I assume, we'll be getting back now that the town deal money has been awarded, yeah?
I would assume so, but I'm going to look to the clerk for confirmation.
The funding for that was actually front-loaded. We already received that from Mendip District Council for the project. So yes, it's not Glastonbury Town Council's, it's not Glastonbury Town Council's public funds that have gone on that. It's the town deal funding, because we had pre-funding for the architects and some of the reports, etc. So we've already received income funding to offset against that.
Great, because there's going to be a load more drawings now, isn't there?
Yes.
That'll work. Good.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Oops, I noticed there's I just lost it for a sec. Oh, the Flying Tiger Productions film and photograph of the proclamation. Yeah. Are we ever going to see this film? Or is it going to be available to view, or is it already available on YouTube?
No, the film will be, now that the planting of the Holy Thorn has happened, the film will be being edited, and we will have a premiere of it, I'm sure, in the town hall.
Fantastic.
It may be that we might include footage of the cutting of the Holy Thorn this year, because it's obviously quite prestigious with the first one for the King.
Yeah.
So that is a conversation yet to be had with the company, who are in the middle of doing something, I believe, for the town deal at the moment, or something like that.
Okay.
So, we may have to wait a while. Councillors, do I have your permission to sign off these scheduled payment for October? I will suffice.
Yeah.
Thank you. While I do so, we shall move on to consider the motion received from councillors. We have motion 7A. Councillor McDougall, would you wish to speak to this motion?
So the motion is this council endorses the plant-based treaty as inspired by the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative in 2021. So I could say a lot of things in support of a move towards a plant-based diet. But whilst some councillors have an aversion to this topic, or many people do, I have an equal aversion to long meetings, so I'll keep it brief. I'm going to say a bit about CO2 emissions, but also diet and nutrition, as that is often cited as a reason to object to it. The most important point is the CO2 emissions. Agriculture produces, and my figures are 10% of global CO2 emissions. That was on a recent radio programme about net zero. So agriculture must play its part. And we must too, and reduce demand for beef and lamb, especially if it is imported from other countries, and worse still, where rainforest is chopped down to produce it. Somerset County Council has reviewed the topic recently, citing a paper that shows the problem with methane or CO2 equivalent is half that originally stated in their Somerset Climate Emergency Strategy. However, it still takes 16 times as much land to produce 1 calorie of animal product as it does for plants. I come from the psychological viewpoint, that's my background, so I say let's just be a bit less greedy and get our dopamine fix that accompanies a good meal from other things. My favourite is oxytocin, which regulates dopamine and is stimulated by altruistic or pro-social behaviour, though that has now been shown to make us a little bit tribal. I'm still in favour of oxytocin, good stuff. Right. So nutrition-wise, calcium and B12 deficiency are often cited as reasons we need meat. Regarding calcium, I will be careful with advice we're given, as need may be defined more by good marketing than accurate science. When it comes to B12, many vegetables, especially fermented and those still retaining natural healthy bacteria, contain B12, which is a good argument for fresh and local. Though I personally maintain it is easier to get what you need by eating occasional meat and dairy in your diet, i.e. reduced. The other one is iron. When I first studied this, I was astonished that 1 tablespoon of curry powder contains about 10% of an adult's daily dietary needs. So the Indian diet of rice and dal then makes perfect sense. Compared to, say, chicken, where you get your full iron requirement from a 2 to 4 ounce portion, depending very much on the quality of the meat. Good quality meat can be 10 times richer in iron. And that's as far as I've got. So those are my arguments, and I'm sure Mike will follow up with any gaps in the arguments. It's a very complex topic, and please support this motion, Councillor.
Councillor Smythe, do you wish to speak now or at the end of the debate?
I'd like to speak at the end of the debate.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any councillors wishing to speak against the motion? So Councillor Cottle and then Councillor White.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, when I say against, I'm against the idea of this town council having this particular motion, because I don't think it's something that we should be discussing. But that's here or there. I'm practically a lifelong vegetarian, near enough a vegan, and I come from a farming background as well, so I'll be open about that. But I think that gradually over the years, more and more people have become and used a plant-based diet, and I don't think they need to be indoctrinated by it. I think it will naturally come, and it's naturally going that way. So unfortunately, I disagree. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you. So I have a number of concerns about it. One is certainly this treaty seems very much about the westernised market. And so reducing that, which is a good thing, industrial consumerism isn't taking us anywhere. So again, I would come for local stuff, local food, get rid of all the food miles.
Like you do.
One of my biggest concerns is the military industrial agro-pharmaceutical complex, because I feel that they will capture, manipulate and control the food supply. Okay, so we think Monsanto, the GMOs, seeds not functioning, so they're engineered not to have a future crop. So that is a concern for me. Taxes, I'll mention that briefly. So a tax on meat and fish. I'll address fish in a moment because it's actually quite important. So again, fits very much in a westernized mindset, and that isn't the reality in most of our planet. So the ocean, just as an example, 4 billion people, half of the world, rely on the ocean for their food supply. Okay, what do we in the West do? We dump 14 million tons of plastic a year into it. You know, so that's all part of the fossil fuel industry and problem. My biggest concern, so Lindsay sort of touched on the sort of local things and the cycles, phosphate, nitrogen, things like that. So we know a good percentage of land, probably 25% of agricultural land, doesn't produce food. It's had it. So we're putting in ever larger quantities of artificial fertilizers. That has a major impact on what happens to the nutrient cycle. We also know for phosphorus and the problem on the Somerset Moors and Levels on our Ramsar sites, that we've even had to stop building houses because of what's happening with the phosphates. So I presume most of you haven't looked at Planetary Boundaries, and I wish you would. So the place to go in and look is Stockholm Resilience Centre, Stockholm University. And essentially, there are 9 categories that have summed up all of the impacts of humanity. That includes climate change, nitrogen phosphate use, land use, freshwater use, ocean acidification, breaking the ozone layer, novel entities. So that includes plastics that don't exist in nature. In the center of that glyph, and you can download it, is a safe operating space for humanity. We've exceeded 5 of those 9 now. So what we're talking about, one of them that's just flipped, there's a paper this year, is about land use. So changing land use, and so we're asking again for even more land. Water, fresh water. Fresh water is a major issue. Again, just this month, I think, or last month, there's a new paper that we've exceeded the boundary on what we call green water, if you like, rather than blue water of the ocean. So we don't have that much water. The lady who presented did a very good one, so I've looked at what happened in Pakistan as a very good example. Back at Easter time, they were expecting to be 30% under their water catchment. So they were heading for drought. Suddenly, as I mentioned last night, they got 30 years rain in about 2 weeks, and a third of the country flooded, including Sindh, which is the large agricultural producing place. So all of that has now gone. You know, so whatever we do, for me, it's very much about we need to find a way of living in balance. If we go for like a global plant food supply, first off, to get those emissions down, all vehicles, processes, shipment has to be carbon neutral. So that's the first sort of point inside that. So certainly we need to stop shifting food all the way around the planet. I find it absolutely bizarre that I can go across the road from my house into Morrison's and buy a fresh coconut and a fresh mango. Yeah. You know, just going like, what? You know, for me, that is crazy. So grow local, eat seasonally, get rid of those food miles. For me personally, I like a balanced diet. I like meat, fish, shellfish, plants, fungi. One of the things I'm very worried about is if the law of unintended consequences, if we upset the food web. And so if you don't know what a food web is, it's that everything eats something and is eaten by something else. Okay, so that just puts it simply. So if we accidentally break that, then everything else starts to collapse. Traditional cultures, so those who know me know that I've lived with indigenous people for a long time. We live very simply. We're part of the environment. We take what we need for the day. We don't waste. If something, say, the fish have gone or too small, we stop taking that species. An industrial fishery can't because they're profit driven. So these are the things that really sort of concern me the most is, okay, we can charge down this road, say, yes, okay, we'll just eat plants. From my last 12 years in the Pacific, especially from 2019, ultraviolet and increased temperatures were stopping the pollen from fertilizing. Okay, so increased UV. And the tomato, I had like plants in my garden, flowers everywhere, nothing would set to fruit, even if I had pollinated. You know, and so the Western world hasn't yet got a clue of what's coming from down the other side of the planet. We're just coming up to a 4th or maybe 5th year of La Nina, which causes a whole load of other problems. So I would have a slightly different proposal. I'll read it and maybe there'll be someone who seconds it. That this council supports those activities that bring humanity back into balance with our planet Earth and its other species.
Yeah, I'll second that.
So thank you. That isn't an amendment to this motion, but it is another motion. So we will continue to deal with this motion, and as your motion has been seconded, we will return to your motion. They're not mutually exclusive motions, they're just two different motions. If that's okay, I'm checked with the clerk to make sure that I am observing standing orders correctly.
I believe so, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. So, councillors, I have Councillor Much.
Sorry, thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm broadly in agreement with the thrust of this proposal, and on more than one ground, and particularly because of it makes mention of intensive farming, doesn't it? And I think that's something which is unsustainable on every level and morally wrong. And also, there's a risk when you mistreat animals to that extent and you concentrate them in huge numbers, as increasingly happens, the risk of disease, which then spreads to, as the threat of spreading to humans. I believe in some countries they give huge amounts of antibiotics to creatures that have got nothing wrong with them when they're born, in anticipation of the fact that because of the way they're treated, they might well have. So I think there's multiple reasons, part selfish, part moral for the animals' welfare, that all of that kind of intensive farming should be outlawed, and I'm very happy to support any motion that endorses that principle. I have read quite a lot recently about where more traditional methods, this is in Africa, where animals move from one area to another with migrating tribes, that it actually enhances the quality of the land. So I get that there is another angle on this, but it's not so much, well, not the case at all in the West, it's certainly particularly not in the United States. And I think, at a time when we're talking about trying to do deals for food with the USA post-Brexit, which probably won't happen, but if we're even considering things like that, given their lower welfare standards, then any motion which obstructs that kind of tactic, I think, should be supported. So the free range one, the land use, it seems to be an extraordinarily disproportionate revelation to me. Was it 80% of the land is used to raise animals on, and that only produces 18% of the food. So there's definitely a huge question there. And the answer to it, this horrible intensive farm, is not sustainable, and it's not moral, and it's not defendable on any level. So free range is the way to go. Blessedly, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I still eat a bit of the meat, but I have compromised by only eating free range. And my dog, being an equal partner in my house, has insisted that he only has free range. To I hope the delight of somebody who I trust to produce genuinely free-range meat in this town. He is now free-range as well, though not completely vegetarian, but he's a dog. And I certainly I'm interested by the qualified proposal, but it's a little vaguer. I'd give it my support. I like the idea that Glastonbury sends a message to the rest of the country and the world that we have to move in this direction, which is, it's not as extreme as saying everybody's got to be a vegan, and there is still room for reasonable standards. But the flaky kind of pretense of free range which the supermarkets propagate, and they're just not free range. You've only got to look at the price and you can see it can't be free range. It wouldn't be viable. For Jack the hound and myself, it's free range only, and that's the way we've got to go. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Now, there's a lot in this treaty that I would agree with. For you, those of you who don't know me, I've got a butcher shop in Glastonbury. I abhor the kind of mass farming that is proliferating, especially in the US, but is obviously moving elsewhere. Thousands of head of cattle inside massive buildings. You know, I've been a butcher in Glastonbury since '85. I had a shop on Windmill Hill, and now I've got a shop in the town. And we have always striven to deal in free-range local produce. I know all the farmers that we deal with, they're all within probably a 10-mile radius of the shop. We know how the animals are reared. We know that the farms are well looked after, and they're not using a massive amount of fertilizer on their ground. They use animal fertilizers. And I would hate for that sort of tradition or that kind of industry to sort of go under what is, there's a broad brush in this treaty here, which I can't agree with all of it, I'm afraid. You know, although Glastonbury has changed over the years, become a spiritual centre, a tourist town, we are still essentially a farming community. You know, a lot of my customers, a lot of the people I know farm in some way, either arable or in the livestock business. And, you know, this part of the world and you know, England, British Isles in general, are farmers. You know, we need to protect that. And I think that I agree with, I mean, Michael's scientific approach is fascinating. I would agree with that 100%. And Ian, as a customer of mine, you know, he comes from where I'm talking about. It's free range, it's, you know, animal welfare, it's small businesses, it's farmers caring for about what they do. So, although I agree with a lot of this, I can't vote in favour of it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Thank you, Councillor.
Well, speaking as an ex-farmer's wife, I can probably have a lot more interest in farming than many people around this table. The big problem is that we are driven by cheap food, the demand for cheap food, and that has reduced the farming community into a machine. My husband was a farmer, an organic farmer, and we raised our own animals. We knew the names of all our animals. It was more of a pet farm than a farm. But that said, there is a cycle in nature that you cannot disrupt without problems, and that cycle includes animals. And if you look at this treaty, which seems to be so plant-based, you're not giving anybody any choice, and people do require choice. It is important for people to have a balanced diet. Any nutrition person will tell you it's important for people to have a balanced diet. One of my friends who is anemic, as I am myself, had to go to a doctor recently because she was very poorly. And he said, I'll give you a choice. You can have 3 weeks of injections, or you can go home and eat a steak. She went home and ate a steak and felt better immediately. So there are fors and against this, but I would come down. I haven't got the experience that Mike has got. I certainly haven't got the experience, knowledge, but I have got the experience of working with animals and looking at different farms. The way to go is small farms that care for their animals,
who can produce food. We can no longer produce food to feed ourselves in this country, and we must stop. We must stop selling farmland off for houses. When the last fish is fished and there is nowhere to go, you cannot eat a house brick. We have to understand that we are part of this world, and part of that world means that we have to be balanced. We have to look after our animals. Animals that are looked after thrive. Plants will survive whatever you do to a plant. There are 13, I think plants go back 13,000 years and still come back and survive. Right here in Glastonbury, we are one small market town. We must support our farmers. What are you going to do with the cows? Put them in zoos? What are you going to do with the sheep? Put them in zoos? We need to have a balanced diet. We need to have sheep. We need to have animals around, and we need to have them cared for and looked after. And when it comes to the end of their life must be ended as painlessly as possible. So I don't believe I can support this because it is so one-sided. I don't like being dictated to, and I won't be dictated to. But I do think that we have to look at things in moderation. That is my argument for this, that yes, please, Mike is exactly right. If we stick to the seasons, if we stick to the food that we produce, if we understand that animals are reared, they fertilise the land, we don't need fertilisers if animals fertilise the land. You know, you've only got to look at something like the River Nile, when they built the reservoir. Up till that point, the Nile had flooded, and it had brought with it nutrients down, and nobody needed fertiliser, because the Nile brought it to them. They stopped the Nile, they created the dam, which was vital as well. Now every farm in Egypt uses fertilisers, and some of them are not very nice fertilisers. You know, animal fertilisation is best. So I would say, as the Greeks said, everything in moderation is the best way to go. But please remember that farmers have to earn a living. They have children as well. And the majority of farmers, I think, here in the West Country are exactly the farmers that look after their animals. They're small farmers. They farm in an old-fashioned way. Not in, if you go to the east, you'll get the great land barons, the great fields upon fields upon fields of corn, which is mainly crops which have been fertilised by artificial fertiliser, and they are now creating bread. And that bread's not good for you. We need to get back. We need to understand that we humans are only a very, very small part of the world. And we need to live in harmony with both plants and with people and with animals. Otherwise, we're finished. So, sorry to go, but that is my personal feeling. So I'm sorry, I can't support this. If it was a more balanced view, I might think about it. But I can't support unless you can tell me what you're going to do with all the sheep you're going to get rid of, and all the cows you're going to get rid of, and all the goats you're going to get rid of, and all the chickens you're going to get rid of. Are they going to go in zoos? What are you going to do? We must have a balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Don Francesco?
Yes, was I next? Is anybody else?
Speaking against, Paul.
Well, you're speaking.
Councillor Lockbandy wanted to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Don Francesco and then Councillor Wendy. And then Councillor Smythe.
Okay, thank you. No, I just thought I had to speak at this point. Am I for or against? As a person in Glastonbury or living on this planet, I am totally all for it. As a councillor, I have questions. I know some of those answers, and I'm not sure actually a lot's been explained. I'm all for this because it is the right thing to do. As humans, we are totally in a climate emergency. And animals, the intensive farming of animals is it's an extreme at the moment, so it needs an extreme answer. So whether we think about it in short term or long term, it's an extreme thing that needs an extreme answer. But the whole the reason I wanted to stand up, as a fellow council member mentioned, nothing's going to happen overnight. I can't see this. My big question was, how does this actually translate practically? What does it actually mean to be plant-free. It's like we're a frack-free town, or we're a plastic-free town, yet we still have plastic. I think a lot of what this is actually about putting our weight behind something that should happen, that is a good idea. It's how it's going to translate to local people, how it's going to translate to farmers. I think there was a lot that hasn't been explained in subsidies. So there is an idea as part of this project. They're not literally just coming in to sound like everyone has to give up meat. It's not a case of suddenly the sheep have to disappear out of the fields or the cows. It's an idea, it's a concept. It's putting ourselves behind something, saying, hey, it's a transition. And I think it's the transition bit that we're missing here. I don't think we're going to start putting our farmers in the gibbet. It's not like that. This is literally moving into, and it's the same as as our local butcher. We do actually like to think about things in a better way in this town, and I think this is literally putting our weight behind something that needs to be done. We have in Boltonsborough, I know it's not here, but there's a farmer there I just acquainted. He's got a huge industrial unit. He's one of the biggest landowners there. He's got an industrial unit where his cows never see daylight, and the rest of the few hundred acres are for maize, which feeds the cows. And the maize is one of the most industrially crippling things to land that you can do. So those are the kind of things that hopefully we'll be putting out information. We already have in this town, we've started the 5 Mile Food Project, which I think can link into this. We've also got the new cookery network. There's so much work. All this will mean is that we are putting our weight behind something that is a good idea, and that a transition can maybe start happening. They do talk about subsidies. It was very, very briefly mentioned that in subsidies, there's massive subsidies given to farmers. It is as an industry, it would have gone out of business years ago. And what they're talking about with the transition is moving those subsidies into more of an agricultural, or as there's a new word around, agroecological.
Agroecological.
Thank you. Agroecological way of doing things, which is what we should be about. So it's brave, it's bold, and it's going to get a lot of misinformation. I don't want to, for 1 minute, not our local farmers think that they're not going to get support, or that they are now a dirty word. This is such about transition. And it's, as somebody mentioned, one of the councillors mentioned, it's naturally going that way anyway. So why not be bold and be a little bit upfront about it? I think that's all I wanted to say. Just ask you a question. I know I'm not allowed to speak. Is it just possible to ask a question?
Are you asking a question of a particular councillor or the council in general?
Well, of you both as councillors, whilst the South-Based Treaty is, a lot of it is commendable, it's ethos. A lot of the points are commendable. I've read a lot about it over the last week or so. A lot of its principles are very commendable. For our town, is it not an individual's freedom of choice, not the council's mandate, to then sort of adopt it? It should be the council's mandate to adopt it on every resident's behalf, because on their website they say you can adopt it as an individual or a business or a group or a town or whatever. So should we not be thinking about adopting it as a town? Leave it up to people's freedom of individual choice, because that's what every individual should have, freedom of choice. And then any person in your electorate that comes in the town should be making that individual choice. So it shouldn't be down to whoever's elected here to be making that choice. We as individuals of your beautiful town should be making that choice, and it shouldn't be up there as you making that decision. Our country is all going towards this anyway. As we're getting more informed, we're all
all trying to make a difference and trying to be more environmentally friendly and being more aware of the climate and the things, the decisions we make can do that and try and make a better difference. But it shouldn't be the council making that.
So if I may respond. No, well, thank you. And obviously this is quite an emotive subject in many ways. The council in its past have passed motions against or for various things. There are motions which are the intent of the council. So, for instance, I think a long time ago there was a motion passed way before I was on the council against nuclear power when they were first building Hinkley Point. I don't know whether anyone older on the council, I look to my esteemed colleague here, remembers that, but it was certainly explained to me when I first came on the council that that happened. Now, there are many people in the town, I'm sure, who feel that nuclear power isn't a bad thing, but the council took that decision before I was on it. More recently, my esteemed colleague here and I passed a motion that Glastonbury was against fracking. Councillor Cottle put it forward, I seconded that. The council took a stand saying that it is against fracking. There are many people in the town who possibly think that fracking isn't a bad idea, particularly in light of all the things that are happening in Russia and the way that that is impacting on that. But it's a council's point of view. More recently, again, we declared climate emergency. Now, there are many people in this town who believe that the climate emergency is a hoax and that it's not something that is even worth thinking about. But as a council, the council took that decision. We became a council that would be plastic free, but there are many people still in the town who wish to use plastic, and that was single-use plastic free motion. We also passed a motion to become an earth protector town, which was to lobby for ecocide to be considered as an international crime. Now, there are probably people in the town who don't agree with that either. And none of those things that we've passed in the past have stopped the individuals of the town having their own beliefs and holding their own power in what they think. It's just a way of the council showing a general trend towards something. And I think that invariably we're possibly on the right side of history within those things. Again, more recently we declared ecological emergency. Again, there are many people in this town, I know they come in and tell me very close to my face how wrong we are in even believing that there is an ecological emergency or that climate change is a complete hoax. But it's a position that the council has taken. The plant-based treaty is around tackling climate change. It's not about getting a big stick and hitting farmers. I myself grew up on a dairy farm, so I know exactly how farming is in this country. It was in Wiltshire, it wasn't in Somerset, but I know about that. I know about the way that small farmers and tenant farmers have really been up against it, totally aware of that. This isn't about getting a big stick and hitting those people. It's about looking at the wider picture. And we've already talked about the factory farming and the way that we are producing food to meet the high need of this in this world. That's the focus, I believe, that the debate is about. And it's very interesting for us to hear. As you can see, not all councillors are in favour of this, even around the table. But at some point in a world where really we're heading towards 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels of carbon, you will not recognise the world you're in. And we're already there. It's just taking time for it to happen. But if you think about the disasters, natural disasters that are happening, look at the hurricane that came into America recently, look at what's happening around the world. That is 1.5 for sure by 2030. If we're talking about 2 degrees by 2040, above pre-industrial levels, we are in a catastrophe. So this is why I believe the councillors who put forward this motion have put the motion forward. It's about hoping for the council itself to send a message, if it does, to the wider community that this is an important thing to consider. And it's to endorse a treaty that sits alongside other treaties that the European Union, etc., and other governments in the world have taken onto account. So it's not about this council telling everybody else what to do. And if it's come across like that, I do apologise, because that is not.
It doesn't read that way. When you read the demands in the literature and on the website,
Yeah.
it reads very much like a dictatorship, and some of it sounds quite dangerous to our rural economy and businesses and that in the area, and about choice, and that's how it comes across to me as a layperson that doesn't know any different.
Yes.
And as a member of the community. So
I totally hear what you're saying.
I worry about that, even though I worry about our climate as well.
I've worried about the plight of our farming community, the local farmers, the small farmers, the tenant farmers. Believe me, I worry about that a great deal. And it's something that is in crisis, and that's something else that this council, I hope, will look to support, how we can support our local agricultural system at some point. But if the council passes or doesn't pass this motion, it's not going to impact on every person in this town will suddenly have to stop eating so much meat. This council doesn't have the authority for that, as you quite rightly point out. This is about whether or not the council itself wishes to endorse a treaty that is a worldwide sort of movement. And so that's where we're at. But I do thank you for your question. It's extremely useful. And I hope that that's cleared that up in some way.
I'm sorry if I spoke out.
Yeah, there are many mayors who have never wanted anyone from the community to speak at meetings. I'm afraid I'm not one of those. I'm very happy for the community to speak at meetings. Thank you for what you said. So, councillors, I seem to have lost where we were at, but I think that Lokabandu, you were going to be next.
Yes, thank you. It clearly is a motive issue, and we'll see how the votes fall into it. I've listened to people with interest, their different objections, and I take all the points, but I'm not sure they are all relevant to the actual vote in front of us. So, for instance, Councillor White says we should be local and seasonal. I completely agree, but that's not conflict with this treaty at all. Councillor Oakham says we should have a balanced diet. I completely agree. I've been a vegan for 10 years and enjoy, luckily, excellent health. Councillor Buttle says we shouldn't be in this business of endorsing treaties anyway. I would disagree. I don't think we're telling people what to do in some authoritarian way. We're kind of suggesting what we feel is the way forward, which I endorse. And I don't think we're anti-farming at all. I think we are encouraging farmers to use their land in a different way. The future is changing. We might as well get used to it. I could point out more points people made, but that's where I stand.
Thank you. So, Councillor McDougall, I feel you have the right to reply to something that's been said.
On thought for the day this morning, there was a very relevant, pertinent comment on freedom and the right to freedom. And it was where one person's freedom ends, another person's begins. So this is about climate change, and it won't really impact us first, though it does with catastrophic weather events in the Western world. It impacts the poorer countries, like Pakistan, massively. So, yes, you may say we should have freedom of choice, but it has consequences elsewhere. So, I would just point that out, that we should have some compassion for the people who it is going to affect when we make our choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councillors who haven't spoken who wish to speak to this? So, Councillor Smythe, you as the second, did you wish to speak now?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for this, all of your contributions, especially to Councillor Lokabandu for his summary, very eloquent summary of what this the purpose of this treaty, and I think everybody's concerns around this table are actually allocated for within this treaty, because it isn't doesn't totally exclude the eating of meat, as long as it's locally sourced and sustainably farmed, without the use of pesticides, herbicides, or intensive factory farming methods, and with high animal welfare standards. That sort of thing is implicit in the move towards, because this treaty aims to halt the widespread degradation of critical ecosystems, such as those in the Amazon rainforests, such as those that are supporting mass production of supermarket meat. And it's a move towards, a shift towards a healthier, sustainable plant-based diet. It does not exclude the eating of meat, especially when it's locally sourced. It's free range, and everything else that's been said around this table. I'd like to quote also, thank you, Mayor, for your contribution. The Deputy Lord Mayor of Bristol recently quoted, with regard to this treaty, that we must act now if we have any hope of limiting the impact of climate change. We all need to play our part, and the hard-hitting reality is if we cannot continue with a business as usual attitude. We can all make changes in a small way, and one such change is moving away from a meat-based diet towards a plant-based one. Now that, again, does not exclude one or the other. It's a moving towards. Another quote I'd like to make, just to finalise, if I can drag this down, is from Dr. Richard Nicholson, who is a councillor for Haywards Heath. We've heard him, Haywards Heath mentioned earlier on, in the southeast of England. And he said of this, he said, "We've endured the highest ever summer temperatures in history, and people's properties have been destroyed by fire and flood. We cannot wait for governments. We must all act immediately, and moving towards a plant-based diet, as again, moving towards, is the most impactful thing any individual can do to help address the grave situation we face. I'd encourage all town, district, county and metro councils to sign the plant-based treaty immediately." And that comes from Councillor for Haywards Heath, I believe is Conservative Councillor. But anyway, I do implore everybody around this table to think carefully and vote in favour of this treaty, because we will be showing a good example to the rest of the country in the right way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much for summing up. So we have a motion in the table. Councillors, the motion to consider is this council endorses the plant-based treaty as inspired by the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative in 2021. All those in favour?
I have that as 7, Your Worship.
Thank you. All those against?
I have that as 9, Your Worship.
Thank you. The motion is not carried. Thank you very much. So we now have a second motion, which is on the table. Councillor White, would you like to read your motion again?
This council supports those activities that bring humanity back into balance with our planet Earth and its other species.
And we have a seconder?
Yep, I'm seconding.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether we wish to speak to this motion. Is there something you wish to add to it as the proposer?
The big bugbear with general human activities is perpetual war. So we just go on, funding both sides. And so the emissions from that rarely get mentioned. They do in a few places, but not often. But for me, I would support activities that bring us back into balance. So the plant-based treaty would be one of those things. Perhaps.
Farming rather than...
Thank you.
Farmers.
Yeah. And as a seconder, do you wish to speak now?
Yeah, quickly, because we're running a bit late here. I would agree with Michael's idea, because I think that what we need to do is to return to the old-fashioned way that we farmed, where everything was in balance, And in the 1950s and 1960s, it didn't have an excessive use of fertilizers, and you had small mixed farms. In fact, I can remember when I was young here in Glastonbury, there were 25 dairy farms, and all those families made a living out of that size of farm. Now you can't. We've got used to cheap food. You think it's expensive, but it's cheap muck, a lot of it. And the only way to do it is to go back to having, I've got to say it, more expensive. If you want to eat meat, you have to pay more money. And but decent and reared properly. Like Steve here as a butcher buys all of his meat locally, and I don't eat meat, but I do. I respect Steve for that, and I think that's the way we should go. And smaller farmers.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall.
I'll just briefly say I will support this, but the point of the plant-based treaty is completely different. It's about reducing your meat intake, and that's part of this. Now, I don't understand why somebody supporting the balance is not going to support a reduction in meat eating, but I will support it anyway.
Thank you. As a point of order, I have to hold up the meeting, as the clerk has informed me that the votes tallied do not equal the number of councillors.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
So I would like to, as a point of order, ask the councillors who voted in favour to show their hands again and have a recorded vote so that the clerk can...
That is 16.
Your Worship, if you'd like a recorded vote, could you read out members' surnames and I'll make a note. It's very difficult to do a recorded vote and count myself.
Well, perhaps, councillors, if you have your hand up, can you say your name for the clerk to hear and then put your hand down?
Mr. Bandu.
Much.
Danny Dougal.
Don Francesco.
Cousins. And if the same could happen for those opposing the motion, please. You could raise your hands and then say your name and lower your hand. That would be great.
Costle.
Henderson.
Oakden. Osborne.
Thank you, Your Worship. That is 7 for and 8 against.
So thank you very much for that clarity. We now return to the motion on the table. So does anybody wish to speak against the motion? All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. Councillors, all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands.
I have that as 15, Your Worship, unless...
I'm going to abstain on that.
So I have that as 15-4.
Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to note the
To interrupt, there are only 15 councillors here. So how can there be 15 voting for and 1 abstaining?
Sorry, well, that must be 14, 4 and 1 abstention. I do apologise. No, you're quite correct.
Very good.
It's very difficult to count hands.
We are obviously mathematically challenged,
well,
but
yes,
we will
clearly.
attempt to resolve all those issues. Councillors, we now move to item 8, to note resolutions from delegated committees. So, these... Connor, do we have these on available?
The report was provided digitally with the summons. You have a copy.
I know, I was just looking what's next.
You gave your copy back to me, Your Worship, because they're only for noting. But there you go.
Okay. Thank you. Councillors, these are for noting. Is there any comments on any of the points therein? Or if you're happy for these to be noted, I will suffice. So, councillors, if these are for noting, if you're happy for them to be noted, I will suffice. Thank you, Connor. Thank you. And item 9, to receive the updates from the advisory committees. So these were also for our noting.
Worship, these are actually for consideration.
Oh, I do apologise.
They are recommendations.
Recommendations for consideration. So, councillors, we have Neighbourhood Plan Advisory Committee meeting held on the 18th of August. There are no recommendations?
No, Your Worship. The first recommendations are from Glastonbury and Bloom, which is item D.
Right. So, as Chair, I will ask councillors to consider this. It was resolved that Glastonbury and Bloom recommended to full council for extra funding of £2,000.
That should read, Your Worship, that would take their overall budget to £15,000 for the next financial year.
So, councillors, I propose, or I would propose that we consider that recommendation. Are we happy to resolve that recommendation? If so, we would need somebody to propose that and second that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Would it not form part of the wider budget discussion that's happening in November?
It could do, but it's been put to full council, and we can resolve that here and now if we wish to.
I'm sorry if I've missed something, but why do they want to have the extra funding? The big shift from 2 to 15,000.
No, they currently get 13.
Sorry, the way it's been...
Extra funding of 2,000.
Yeah.
Take their total budget to 15, currently 13. Sorry that the wording's not very clear. It's been lifted straight from the meeting notes.
I would agree with you, if it went from 2 to 15, that would be a rather large increase.
Okay.
So are any councillors present happy to propose that we accept that recommendation?
Yeah.
Councillor Serena, do you got anybody prepared to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favour?
I have that as a majority, Your Worship.
All those against? All those abstaining?
Oh, sorry, I abstained. Sorry, I lost.
2 abstentions.
2 abstentions, and how many for?
Oh, no, it's 4. Sorry, can I be a supporter?
So, councillors, I would ask if councillors could pay attention.
Sorry.
I know that we've been through quite an extraordinary motions and other motions, but councillors, we have a series of recommendations before us. We need to approve them. To do so, the council needs to vote on the recommendations. The first recommendation was that Glastonbury and Bloom's funding increases by £2,000 to £15,000 for the next financial year. I have Councillor Serena Roney-Dougal has proposed that. Councillor Oakton has seconded that. All those in favour?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have that as a majority.
Thank you. So, Councillor, is this second recommendation still pertinent to the town clerk?
It is not pertinent, no, Your Worship, because we received a Holythorn specimen from Kew Gardens. However, because it was a recommendation from an advisory committee, it needed to come before you, but because it's not relevant, you may choose just to move on.
So, councillors, the second recommendation was to have some money available to purchase the Holythorn from Kew Gardens. I'm very pleased to say that they donated the Holythorn, and they also paid for bringing it here. I would like to extend the council's thanks to Kew Gardens for all they've done to support us in the planting of the new Holythorn. There are no recommendations from Frost Fair. Climate Ecological Emergency Advisory Committee.
Sorry, before you go into that, Your Worship, can I just raise, they're for information because Climate and Ecological Emergency reports into the Resilience Committee, so they were considered by Resilience yesterday evening.
Okay. So, councillors, over the page, item G, the extremely successful Queen's Platinum Jubilee events that we've had an advisory committee set up for that purpose. That is now closed. However, that committee has recommended to full council that an arts, culture and events advisory committee is established. And this advisory committee leads on the celebrations for the coronation in 2023, which is going to happen, and we will need to have something around that.
Can I just add to that the date of the coronation has been released today?
When is it?
It'll be the 6th of May 2023.
Thank you very much. So, councillors, would anybody wish to?
I'm happy to propose that motion.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to? Thank you. All those in favour of setting up the Arts and Culture and Events Advisory Committee for overseeing the coronation and other things, but
I have that as a majority, Your Worship.
Majority. You're abstaining from the vote?
Oh, just because I wasn't.
Because you weren't here. Thank you very much for considering those recommendations. We now move.
Can I mention about the neighbourhood plan?
Yes, of course.
So I was at the meeting and we are trying to get the plan finalised as quickly as possible because it needs to be done before March. And Connor was recommending that we actually appoint somebody to do the work as he and Sarah do not have the time for it. And I feel very concerned that Connor and Sarah do not have the time to see the neighbourhood plan through to be completed before March when Mendip closes down and we have the unitary. And I really would like us to consider urgently that we act on getting somebody in place to do the work that we need done to get the neighbourhood plan through. I was really very concerned when Connor said that neither he nor Sarah had the time to do this.
Thank you. Connor, can I ask, do you know how much work that may involve?
I don't have a qualitative figure for you, Your Worship. I just know that that is one of many, many things that the council are doing at the moment, and it is very labour intensive and it is quite technical work because if we submit something, so we have to run a pre-submission consultation and then submit it for examination. If there is something that Mendip District Council or an independent examiner do not like, they will just give it straight back to us. And unfortunately, they are very time consuming, they are very technical documents. If the council wishes that we go through the pre-submission consultation and submit it to the planning authority, which currently is Mendip District Council, before Mendip District Council becomes the unitary authority, then I do not feel that we have the capacity to reach that target. When Mendip District Council doesn't become part of, when the Somerset Unitary takes over, they will be the planning authority and they will have the statutory obligation, just as Mendip District Council do now, to consider and take forth the neighbourhood plan. So if the council wishes as a milestone to make sure that it is considered by the planning authority before Mendip District Council disappears, no, I don't believe we have the capacity to do that. However, having it seen by the Somerset Unitary will not result in a change to the process because they'll have to follow exactly the same process as the new planning authority that Mendip District Council will.
Thank you. So, councillors, I think this is worthy of a discussion now, a brief one, but I would suggest that we consider this. The neighbourhood plan process that we undertook and are currently trying to finalise has cost the council a considerable amount of money over the years, in the thousands of pounds. It needs to a small amount of work, but dedicated amount of work to get it over the line. And this is not the work that Connor and the current staff are able to support us with. We could, of course, decide to not move forward with the neighbourhood plan if we chose to, but that would appear to be a considerable waste of money for the previous years when it was being done. But that is down to our gift or not. So councillors, I'd be very interested to know your thoughts. I'd like to go round the table and just a few words, not a soliloquy, but a few words from everyone just on your thoughts about whether or not we need to consider putting a dedicated worker to get this across the line. That is an in principle. If we do feel that way, I suggest that this goes to the staffing committee meeting, which is happening on the 26th
That's correct,
of
Your Worship.
October, for the staffing committee to consult with the responsible finance officer and clerk to work our plan of action out on how we might achieve whatever is decided by us now. So we'll start with Councillor Cottle and move around the table.
Okay, I'm going to stand up for this, am I? Yeah. Bit of a shock one, this. My immediate thoughts, so I might as well come out with them because they're probably the ones that are the best ones on this, is that we've already invested so much time and money into this neighbourhood plan that we have to carry it forward and we have to get it done by the end of March, preferably before then. So yeah, I think if we've got to employ somebody on a very temporary basis or whatever, we'll have to do it. We'll have to bite the bullet. I'm not happy about it.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Conor, if we decide to let the unitary decide on the neighbourhood plan, is that something you could possibly do? Or is this always going to be a problem for you to cope with?
No, the
workload.
The issue that there is at the moment is that I don't foresee we have the capacity to complete it before Mendip District Council moves and the Somerset Unitary takes over. Yes, the neighbourhood plan will be completed, but the question is if the council wish for it to be, we go through the 6-week public consultation and then it gets submitted to the planning authority. If they wish for that to happen before Mendip District Council disappears, we don't have the capacity for that. However, the neighbourhood plan will get completed with current staff capacity, but after the new Somerset Unitary is taken over. Not years and years and years into the future, it's just that April.
My question is, does it matter who actually ratifies it, whether it's Mendip or the new Somerset one council?
So if I could just comment as chair of the committee that's overseen this since 2019, the issue with the neighbourhood plan is currency. And the further we get away from the consultations we've done, the less currency there is in our plan. And that is something the examiner will go, wait a minute. And so that might resolve in us having to do a whole new neighbourhood plan if we wish to still continue. So my only response to that is yes, but we're in danger of losing currency. So Conor, I would look to you. I think that that's correct. I think that the currency of the engagement with the community is a valid point.
Yes. In which year did you undertake that consultation, though?
We started in 2019.
Okay. So I'm not proposing that the plan would go before, say, the Somerset Unitary in something like 2026. It's just it's the April 1st deadline, whether you want it to go in before Mendip disappears or it becomes the Unitary. That's a handful of months. I guess it's up for members to consider whether a handful of months, say 6 to 9 months, makes much of a difference in the fact that we're already 3 years on.
Yeah, that was kind of my question.
So
yeah.
Councillor Cottle, do you wish to reconsider with that information?
Oh, this is a difficult one. If it's only going to be a short amount of time, you're talking months.
I would estimate 6 to 9 months, but I don't feel that with the current staffing levels we could get the neighbourhood plan in before the Somerset Unitary takes over. The Somerset Unitary, as the planning authority, will follow the exact process that Mendip District Council will.
Okay, I think I'll change my opinion and think that maybe we can go with your staff and go that way. It's difficult because I think there's going to be issues whichever way this happens, because I can see it on the Mendip side where there's going to be an issue, and I can see it on the Unitary side where there's definitely going to be issues as well, because it's all the merging that's going on and all the things that are happening at the moment. it's just difficult. And I'd sooner get it, to be honest, I'd sooner get it wrapped up and sorted and done. And then it's out the way.
Thank you.
Really.
Councillor Henderson?
Just quickly, Chair, we also run the risk of rushing it through and not doing as good a job. That's a possibility.
I'm not sure we're in any danger of rushing it through.
Well, in the next 5 months, whatever we've got,
I believe
suddenly to get that done.
Yeah.
Is there a danger of it not getting done as thoroughly as it could be? I know we've done a lot of work.
The work required is to bring it in line with the recent developments around climate emergency and ecological emergency, which none of the councils had declared when we started, but now all of the councils have declared, Somerset included.
Yeah.
So the quickest way to make it relevant is for us to move forward as we've been doing with that process.
Right.
So I would understand that if we brought somebody in, which I think is what the clerk is suggesting, who is experienced at doing neighbourhood plans to help us get through the last bit, that may be more efficient than waiting for our own staff to do it. But anyway. So, Councillor Henderson, have you?
Well, in that case, all I would say is we need to find out what it's going to cost, and if that's the route we're going down, we need to finance it.
Thank you, Councillor Manning.
Yeah, I would agree with both what has been said before, that we need to know how much it's going to cost, because yes, I think there's so much work being done that my feeling is it's only a few days' work that's required to bring it up to speed.
Okay.
But there is also then that big piece of work of actually then having to go out to the community and all of that. But yes, it would be good. But whatever the figure is, I am certain that figure is a lot lower than going back to square one and having to start all over again.
Mm-hmm.
True.
The other point, no disrespect to Nick, but I've got very low expectations of Somerset Council. And
me too. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
My feeling is that if we didn't meet the April the 1st deadline, God knows when it would get looked at by Somerset, because they're going to be sorting themselves out for the first 12 months.
That's exactly my feelings.
I agree with what Paul said. I think we've come this far. We can't go back now. Just to spend a little bit more money to actually get the thing to completion seems to me to be more sensible than dithering. It's got to be done, so let's get it done. And if it probably takes 3 days a week, maybe, we need to know some costs, but I would suggest that we just get somebody in and finish the job.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
I don't have any problem with Unitary being the ones that look at it. We don't know how much this will cost to bring in somebody else, but it doesn't seem to me worthwhile. Just let it take its time. It's taken this long.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Yes, I agree with that, totally. Especially in the financial climate we're facing at the moment. We have no idea what's going to happen there. No idea. So taking any risk like that, I would just defer everything at the minute, to be honest.
Thank you.
All right.
Councillor Lochabandu.
I certainly think we need to finish it, do a good job. And if we can find the money and staffing, finish it sooner rather than later. I imagine we won't have much sense to amend it in the last months, or Somerset in the first months. That's probably whatever it is.
Thank you, Councillor March.
Ditto what Councillor Lochabandu has just said.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Price.
Yes, I agree with Councillor here and Councillor here that we should push it forward and get it done.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you. Yes, I think we should push it forward. We've done so much work on it. We've agreed to green spaces, but we need fine details, where the places are, coordinates, things like that. We've come a long way. Most of the text is okay, and so it needs references, tidying up, put into a format. For me, I think it should be done, put to referendum, or put to amend it, and then it's finished. And so getting rid of that committee as well then gives us back staff time.
Thank you. Councillor Rowan Dougal.
Yes, so when we had our last meeting, we did start to look at the climate emergency stuff. A couple of recommendations were made, but only a couple. We were going to look at the transport next in line with the LC whip that we are going to be looking at soon. So we are very, very, very close to finishing it. And Connor suggested that somebody looking at it 2 days a week until we've got it, and we put the final thing through in December, was what was recommended at the end of last meeting, so that we've got until December to absolutely box it all in, and it's there and it's ready to move on to the next day.
Oh.
That was what was recommended, and I would like to further that recommendation, that we get that apparently there was somebody there from Wales and they had used a consultant. They mentioned that Shepton Mallet, they'd used a consultant to get the T's crossed and the I's dotted and the thing through. And I would highly recommend that we do that and just get it off out of our heads, get it off our plates, get it done and dusted, and we can move on to something else.
Thank you. Councillor Smythe.
I recommend also that we get it done as soon as possible using consultants, preferably with experience in neighbourhood planning with climate change in mind. There are 2 or 3 websites available which are given to the clerk to aid with that process. But yeah, as soon as possible, employ extra staffing.
Thank you very much. Councillor Madu.
So it's taken this long because the inspector of the local plan quibbles with our green space allocation and housing allocation in Norton St Philip. So it's nothing to do with our delay. We've been just waiting for the local plan to come through. I thought I'd just make that point. I'm a little bit mystified. We've been taking this quite leisurely with all our green space allocation and everything. Why has it suddenly become difficult? Or we just realised that it's difficult now? And I was wondering if Melissa is qualified to do this sort of thing. I think we should get on with it and employ a consultant. It does sound like we're really very close. So I support what Serena's saying.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I agree. We should support the bringing in somebody else and finishing this and honouring the work, all the good work that's been done so far.
So I feel that consensus around the table is let's push forward with it. So, Council, I'm going to refer this to staffing, who will then discuss whether or not this is feasible from a financial point of view. And I think that's really going to be the bottom line, isn't it? Whether we can afford to do this. But it does feel to me that getting in an expert would be probably quite a good idea, and in the long run will be more efficient and save money, because our own staff may make, not that there is anything wrong with them, but they may not understand the situation in the same way that an expert would, and there are plenty to choose from, and locality may also be a source for that. Thank you very much, councillors. So we now move on to, I'm slightly lost where we were.
The LCN.
We want to 10.
Oh yeah, the LCN. So councillors, to consider response to the new Somerset County Council LCN consultation. I'm sure you've all seen the 3 options in front of us. They're on the table over here if you want to take a look. I am under the impression that option 1 and option 2, although they're based on different things, one on the number of population or residents and the other on an area of geographic area, they're actually surprisingly exactly the same areas of land. The third one is based, I believe, on the current constituencies. Quite an odd thing to choose, as the constituencies will have changed by the time the LCNs are in. So they may have to change again. Councillors, if you haven't seen them, please take a look. Anyone wish to speak to this? Councillor Henderson.
Chair, while people are having a quick shifty. Yeah, I think the sort of the clues in the title is local networks, community networks, and I think that option 3 is way too big. I think option 1 or 2, as you said, are identical. So I would propose that we agree with option 1 or 2, unless anybody around the table has got another option that they would like to put forward.
Yeah, I'm going for 3, even though I was
So Connor is going to put the slides up as well for us to have a look at each one. Councillor,
Here we go.
so Councillor Don Francesco and then Councillor Smythe.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, no, I would agree with Councillor Henderson, but number one, for some strange reason, breaks up the context, which I know is nothing to do with us. And as 1 and 2A or B, 1 or 2 doesn't make any much difference, I think it's going to have 2. So it's to do with geographical and population.
Well, that's good. So, Councillor Smythe, you wish to speak?
I agree with I prefer option 1 because it employs more councillors and be more local, as Steve said. The other 2, well, especially 3, is not so preferable. Option 1. Option A.
Yes, of course.
The difference between A and B, you say about employs more councillors. I didn't quite understand the argument.
Councillor, do remember to stand when you're speaking.
I took that as option A. There are 19 LCNs or 18 LCNs in Somerset, and option B there are 70. So I assumed that 18 there would be more sort of a closer relationship between councillor and elector. Because there are 18 rather than 70.
In option A?
In option A.
Thank you.
18 70.
Can I ask, councillors, does anybody feel drawn towards option C? Please raise your hand now. So, Councillor Cook and Councillor Manning, I've just asked if you feel drawn towards option C, option 3. So, I feel that our debate is between whether or not we prefer option A or option B. And the main difference is the difference that Councillor Smythe has just mentioned, which is that there are more local community networks in option A.
Sorry, Your Worship, I can see the clerk is wishing to speak.
Thank you. Connor, over to you.
Thank you. I've just done some very quick slides just to explain the difference. I won't bother taking you through proposal C because generally I get the feeling in the room you're not that interested. So this is proposal A. In proposal A and proposal B, we are grouped with exactly the same parishes in both proposals. So, and the list of the parishes we're grouped with are on the left-hand side. So we'll be an LCN of 20 parishes. So option A, the team at Somerset County Council have made it generally geographically even. So if I just flick back, generally in terms of land area, they've tried to make the different LCNs even. So there'd be 18 in total, but the population is not spread evenly, and it's not spread even in the LCNs. And then there's just some general notes about some of the features of the LCNs. A PCN is a primary care network. It does match some of the existing local plan geography, so that's planning. So proposal B, as I said, we're in exactly the same group in our LCN. There will be one local community network LCN fewer in total. However, this proposal has been driven more by trying to make them as evenly populated as possible. Obviously, it's not completely possible, but that is why, without wishing to make anyone feel sick, if I flick back, you have smaller LCNs in the Taunton and Bridgewater area, and some of the less densely populated areas have got larger LCNs. So the difference between the two proposals is proposal A is generally geographically even, proposal B is generally population driven, trying to keep that equal. So I don't know if that informs your thoughts. Proposal C, which you don't seem very interested in, which I don't particularly blame you, we would be with 37 parishes in total, so the previous 20 and that 17 there. So one would argue maybe that the local community network loses its value when we're paired with every single town in what is currently Mendip, except for him. So that's largely driven on electoral divisions. So questions to consider in the LCN consultation, which I emailed out to you, I think, ahead of the September meeting, or if not, soon after it was postponed. You're all more than welcome, this goes for members of the public as well, to respond in a personal capacity, but this is for you to consider whether, as Glastonbury Town Council, as a corporate body, you wish to make some kind of response. So generally the questions for us as a town council are to consider: do you support, partially support, or not support each of the LCN boundaries? So I've got the impression that you don't particularly support option C. I'll let you led by the Mayor, discuss between the merits of proposals A and B, although we will be with exactly the same parishes here anyway. Do you think that a local community network is the right name? Should they perhaps have a different name? Names that they've perhaps suggested: community partnerships or community boards. I know in one of the unitary councils, I think it's Buckinghamshire, they call them community boards. In Wiltshire, they're called area boards, for instance. And what kinds of services or powers do you want an LCN, which will function as a committee of the new unitary council, basically? What kinds of powers might you want them to have? What might you want them to deliver? So that would help inform my response on Glastonbury Town Council's behalf to the consultation, if at all you wish to make an official representation.
Thank you, Connor. So we'll leave those questions there. I think that I'm right in saying we don't agree with option C, so we would not support that. It's a bit of a strange one for us and the other 20 parishes in our LCM, because nothing changes between A and B. So what we're being asked to consider is whether we support A and B as options. I think they're not mutually exclusive in the way that we can feed back, or we might decide we partially support them. Is there anything wrong with the 20 parishes that we're lumped in with, for instance?
Could you just put those back on, please?
They're the same parishes for us for proposals A and B.
Yes, Councillor McDougall.
Looking about on the west of the county. So one of the problems with destroying district councils is that actual democratic processes, am I supposed to be standing up? The democratic processes are much more distant. So I would say that is a better idea, because people haven't got to travel so far to take part.
Which is the better idea?
This one, A. Because the people in the west of Somerset, I'm just talking about west of Somerset, not us, because it doesn't affect us either way.
The other question we're being asked is question 3. Oh, sorry, question 2. I have a son who's Asperger's syndrome, and that meant he never wanted to do stuff like go to bed. And so the doctor said, what you need is a strategy. You need to ask him what book would he like to read when he's in bed. And he's so interested in that question, he doesn't notice he's going to bed. So with that in mind, what would we like it to be called?
Don't necessarily have to provide a response to that question. It's one of the questions in the consultation, Your Worship.
And one of the greatest questions I've ever seen in this council: what would we like it to deliver? Councillor McDougall.
Everything that the district council is doing now.
And anyone else have any thoughts on that? Councillor Henderson.
I just think if we're going to take that question seriously, we need to convene a meeting specifically for that.
When does the consultation end?
17th of October, Your Worship.
6 days' time.
It was on the agenda for September, so I can only apologise that obviously we had to postpone the September meeting. I could, if this council wished to call a meeting in order to fully consider the consultation, I could certainly ask the team for an extension, perhaps.
Councillors, are we going to bed or not? I don't think we have any choice on whether or not we're going to be in the LCN. whether or not the LCN exists. It will. We're being asked whether or not we like the big one or the smaller ones. And really, what an incredible question for the county council and district council to ask us, what would we like it to do? I would suggest that everything that is a duty for a local authority that is not the duty for the town and parish councils is what we want the county and the LCNs to achieve for our area. Is probably the most astute answer we could ask. If we don't say that, anything that people don't put on that list, they're going to expect us to do and not give us any money for doing it. Any thoughts? Councillor Mann.
Obviously, it's almost like it's not quite a district council, but it's almost a district council. And my question really is that we're sort of, Glastonbury and Street are at the heart of that network. So we would perhaps be seen perhaps as the focal point. So if those LCNs needed to have meetings, those meetings realistically would probably be in one of those two places primarily.
The one with the meeting room?
Well, exactly. So there's a cost there. Will we be getting some money from Somerset for this? Because we are effectively almost like running a delegated authority for them. So we should be surely getting some budget.
That's a very good point.
I think the Deputy Mayor and myself went to a meeting in Wells City Hall about LCNs, and I think that was one of the things that was brought up, that the funding of the LCNs would be something to be discussed. Obviously, there was no indication of how much it was going to be or what it was going to be for. So that would be something that we'd have to keep an eye on.
That's all right.
One thing I would like to have happen is roads, and so we could do something about the roads in our areas. But another one would be about powers. So what powers would the LCNs actually get?
Thank you. Councillor Cottle.
Yeah, thank you. That was the smartest answer yet. Okay, I'm not privileged to a huge amount of information that you're not privileged to on this at the moment.
There isn't any.
But I will say that you should be asking for, I think, things to do with licensing and all this, all the, and that statutory stuff. Yeah, it's basically what Lindsay said. She's on the right track there. And I don't think you're going to get very far with highways, but never mind. But I think where Lindsay's coming from is the right angle to approach it. But planning...
We're not going to get planning.
Yeah.
So Councillor Don Francesco and Councillor McDougall.
Thank you. No, at the meeting, it was quite vague, but it was also because it's not been put together yet. They're kind of throwing it open, and most people in the room didn't really know what it would actually look like. I mean, it's looking something, possibly in my head, something between a People's Assembly style and a spokes council kind of setup for these things. So they haven't actually got the structure yet of how this is going to look. So, but roads was mentioned actually. There is actually a smaller consultation that I've got through an email that maybe we not all have that consultation. I've certainly had it. I can pass it on to.
I forwarded everyone the
it's on
local council briefing pack on this, which contains the link to the consultation and all the information about the proposals.
Yeah, so we can actually do that. But yes, it's not actually instant.
Councillor McDougall.
But planning definitely, because that requires ordinary people coming together and commenting on planning applications. If that's miles and miles away, that isn't going to happen in the same way. It really is important that planning is kept fairly local.
Councillor Smythe.
I'd agree with that point. Planning needs to be kept as local as possible. I doubt whether we will get it. I think this is a tick box exercise, and it's just like heading towards more centralisation and towards a a two-tier style of government. I think the LCNs will be without any power at all, and it'll be a bit of distraction. But hopefully I'll be proved wrong.
Can I come back?
Yes, of course.
Yes, Mike, I've got to be honest, you're wrong. The whole idea is to make it as local as possible. You have to remember that 4 of these 5 councils that are merging didn't want to merge anyway, okay? And so the idea to make sure that there's local involvement in that. For planning, as Lindsay's just pointed out, we've got a nice grueling one tomorrow night, but you're not going to be able to, the people who will have the votes, to be quite truthful with you, on any planning committee or anything, will be the people who are the unitary councillors who are selected. But I see a bigger role in my own mind for the parishes or whatever to be more important for the consultation, you know? I think that's something that should be pushed. But obviously, because of the way the system works, the people with the votes will be the people from the unitary council who are selected. There'll be a chairman, I would imagine. That hasn't been completely decided or not shared with me yet, but I think that's how it's going to go.
Thank you. So I'd just like to check in with the councillors who haven't spoken yet to make sure that your opportunity to speak on this isn't missed. So if we could start with Councillor Oakton, you don't have to say anything, but if you have something to say.
Do I have a right to reply to what
Well, let's just go around here a moment and then we'll just hear what the rest of the council.
Looking at what I know of it so far, I would say if I have to make a choice, it would be number 1. It would be A.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, I'd go with A as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cook.
A and area partnerships.
Area partnership. Thank you.
Community is just community everything. So this is specifically about areas.
Good point. So, Councillor Dockerbantu, I don't think you should. Thank you.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Price?
Yeah, I would just agree with Councillor Boundaries.
Councillor Ronan-Dougal?
I'm happy for A.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall, if you would like to respond.
So I'd just like to make the point that for the planning, we need decision-making powers, even for the county councillors that are involved, not just advisory. Well, we should.
It might be you should, but I don't think that's coming.
So, councillors, I think what we might want to consider here is the role that we as a parish council might play in an LCN. My concern is that it won't be much, and that this LCN will really be an opportunity for the unitary authority councillors to meet and discuss their patch, as it were, and that we may not have a big role to play in that. The powers that Mendip have, which will be assumed, I suppose, I don't know if that's the right word, into the unitary, that really should be done more locally, I would imagine, are things like licensing, which has just been spoken about, planning, which has just been spoken about. Roads has never been a local thing. It's always been highways, it's been county. But planning and licensing strike me as things that really, how could you make a decision about something that's going to happen in Watchet if you're in Frome? You just wouldn't be able to do it. And so how would somebody who's in Taunton be able to decide what might be happening in Glastonbury? I have no idea. So is there any mileage in answer to question 3, those 2 powers that currently the district council have being suggested as things that the LCN might look at, particularly planning as a power and licensing as a power. Over to you, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. It's my understanding that originally planning was going to be delegated to the LCNs, but then it's been changed to be centralised. So whether that discussion's already been had.
Councillor Henderson, you're not at all suggesting that this consultation is totally tokenistic or placatory.
Not.
That they may have made a decision already.
Centralised.
Well, what do you call making decisions in Taunton? It's not centralisation.
No. I'm pretty sure that when it comes to the planning, at least for the first year or so, it'll have to stay roughly
There should be consultees.
Geographic areas.
There will still be
that we have
consultees,
already.
but I don't think it will be the LPA.
No, there's absolutely no way. You cannot expect somebody from Road, as I've pointed out to people, from Road to go to Taunton, or from Chard to go to Taunton.
As John said. Yeah.
You know, so you will get. It won't be centralised.
Okay.
So we've been at, whether or not it's a serious consultation, we've been asked, what do we want the LCNs to do? Would part of our response as a council have any merit in being planning and licensing?
Yeah, why not?
Councillor McDougall.
So I understand that GPs and school people are going to sit on these LCNs. Is that not correct? The teachers and people involved in education are going to be involved?
I'm not sure on that.
Councillors can be involved.
The idea that it's a proper gathering of the community.
It's going to be good.
So that might be helpful if they were involved and they were goals.
So, Councillor, I'm going to draw this to a close. Can I have a show of hands of all those who are generally in support of A?
I don't need to declare an interest on that, do I? No.
Oh. So
I've got that as a majority, Your Worship, so I can feed back that that was the council's preferred option.
thank you. Well, they're not mutually exclusive. How do we feel about B? Is everybody happy with B?
Dislike B.
So there's a couple of councillors who quite like B, but I think A is probably the one that this council is going to return.
So would I be correct in then, because the options I get are to support, partially support and not support, A, B and C respectively. So to support A, partially support B and not support C.
I think you could fairly say that.
Yeah.
And what should the LCN be called? District Council? I don't know what we should call it.
Glastonbury District.
I like local support, but spokes. Local spokes.
Spokes is a double entendre to me. What does that mean exactly?
It comes from where people's assembly used to come from. A spokes means that you're speaking for people.
So spoken word.
Spoken word.
Thank
sorry.
you. Yeah. Well, you see, you have a centre with the spoke going out.
Oh, let's see. That's right. Yep.
Okay.
I expect you to be in Watts, so that would have been picked up.
And we also had from Councillor Cook area partnership. And I think that whatever the county thinks it will be called will be what it's called, regardless of what we think. But we can give it a few ideas. So we can put into the mix area partnership. What do you say?
Local spokes council.
Local Spokes Council. Any other offers to the great and the good at county?
Local band who said he quite likes LCNs.
Yeah.
Local Community Network.
I don't dislike that, to be perfectly honest.
You don't mind
Councillor
it?
No.
Glastonbury voice.
The Glastonbury voice. Glastonbury and environs.
Good luck. Tell him the other 20 years.
Thank you.
We're not the biggest one in there. Street might have something to say about that.
So I think that it would just be nice to have a show of hands of should the LCNs be considering planning applications? Can I just see if how people feel about that?
We need to do that.
So it looks like
Yes,
a majority.
there is a general appetite for that. Your
Yeah.
Worship.
And licensing?
Yeah.
Yep, there's a general appetite for that, Your Worship.
Any other things that we think that the LCNs might like to consider? Considering what's gone from the district?
At the moment, things like cutting of the grass, the local environment, that sort of thing, footpaths, making sure that the cycleways are cleared so people can bike down them. You know, what shall I call it? Care for the local environment?
Drains,
neighbourhood services.
Neighbourhood services.
Litter.
How do we feel about neighbourhood services?
Yeah.
It seems to be a general thing. So, was there anything else that the district council did? I think that's everything, isn't it?
I don't know. I spent enough time there, so I think it must do more than that.
Licensing, planning, neighbourhood services. So, are we any more for any more? So, if we can respond with that.
Yes, absolutely. Can I just feed in? One of the LCN pilots over on Exmoor is actually specifically looking at highways. The new unitary authority is looking at delivering their highways services and their statutory obligations, but in different ways and in more close consultation with these LCNs and therefore hopefully local communities. So I don't know whether you did want to feed back actually that yes, highways should be part of it. I know it's very distant at the moment, but I think they are looking to bring it more locally.
Thank you. Councillor Manning and then Councillor Cottle.
Yeah, please.
Councillors, one meeting, please.
One of the things that Mendip used to look after was off-street parking. And I think it would be great if that was to come down. But one of the sad things in the past was that on-street parking was separate. So if we were going to grab a bit of highways, I'd like to see on-street parking coming down so that it's all in one group.
I'll talk to you about that.
So, not off-street, but on-street parking.
We want off-street is what Mendip was doing.
Yeah.
I'd like on-street parking as
to be combined with it.
To be combined with it, because otherwise you end up with competing strategies and there's chaos.
Councillors, how do we feel about that, Councillor?
Could we bring car parking in general in network?
I kind of like the way you've brought off-street and on-street parking together, and the LCN should look at that.
Yeah.
With that would cover that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
How do people feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay, so we add that
You're going
as
to
a
put a lot
part.
of work there, but never mind.
And then highway maintenance, is that what you were suggesting? Councillor Cottle, do you wish to speak to this?
That's the one that I'm really interested in, because we've got the drains, etc., and we found out that it's 4 years rotation, what it's been. That needs to become more local. I checked with Somerton about, I don't know whether they've been in touch with you, Connor.
No, I've not had any contact.
About their drains sucker. Well, they don't actually own one. They hire one in themselves to do it, to do the drains. So that might be something worth considering and looking at in the future anyway.
Well, they hire it in and bill Somerset for it.
I'm sorry not, John. They pay for it, I believe. But it's worth, So if we've got the power or something comes down regarding highways and that drainage is really important. This would be important. So definitely need a say on that. Absolutely. And all the other maintenance, potholes, etc., but that's a never-ending nightmare.
So highway maintenance, including cleaning the drains.
Can I drive the gully cleaner, please?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. You're going to retire soon, you'll be able to do that.
So, are we happy with the idea of you getting highways done locally then? Okay, come a quick show of hands for people who feel that. Thank you very much. Is there anything else before we move on? Because we really should.
I know, we're going to be a bit late.
Thank you. So, we now need to... Connor, have you got everything you need from us on the LCNs?
Thank you. Yes, I would just encourage you all to check out the consultation for yourselves as well, because there are questions that I've not necessarily posed to you this evening, because we'd be here for a long, long time.
So, councillors, we have received our information electronically for this meeting, and the next item is, I believe, to receive feedback from members, that's us, to review the process of distributing information for meetings and consider improvements. Councillor Cottle.
Okay. Yeah, I quite like this idea, but I wasn't quite up to speed on it. But there is one thing I have noticed, is that Steve's battery didn't quite survive the time. Okay. Paul seems to be okay. Mike seems to be okay, and a couple of others. But it's really quite important that we have a way if we're going to bring our own personal computers in, that we have a way to charge them up. Because otherwise, one of mine will last, but another one wouldn't, I don't think, last this long. So I think that's important, and we need to sort that out, because it's no good having people whose computers pack up halfway through, and these meetings tend to go on a little while.
Very true. Any other feedback? Councillor Smythe?
I quite like the idea of having it on the screen, on the screen as well. That would alleviate it.
Yeah, that would alleviate that problem.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? Councillor?
I'd just like to say, I mean, this is kind of a trial and error thing at the moment. I think it's a really good idea. I think most people seem to be taking it on board. So, yeah, I'm all for putting it forward and accommodating as best we can people using their own devices.
Thank you. Councillor Serena Ranger.
I'm very happy to have it on my laptop because I can look at 2 or 3 different things at once, and that's really good. But I think I'd like to have a bit more information up there. So, for instance, with the motion, to have the supporting information together with the motion, like we had on the bit of paper, I think that would have been really useful for everyone, so they could see that the motion actually wasn't against animals, but it was, you know. So I think a little bit more information on screen would be really good as well. And I totally support what Nick has just said. I was looking to see where the plug was down here, no plug. So to have something that we could plug it into.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Councillor McDougall.
So Mendip, we have the choice of borrowing a laptop, which is what I've done, because I don't have a laptop. I can probably manage by sitting next to Mike and sharing, but you might in future get people who will want to have it provided and not be out of pocket if they don't have a laptop. So that's something to bear in mind.
Thank you. Any other observations? Are you happy for us to press on with the experiment and see how we feel in a couple of months?
Yeah.
May I just, before we move on, plant a couple of seeds for members maybe to think about? There was a youth provision meeting that was in Quora, and I expect that's because that was the first meeting since we went digital and people didn't have their papers in the post. Some councils locally are looking at a text service whereby I can say log in to a website once a week and it will have your mobile phone numbers and it can send you a text and go, this is a list of the meetings this week. So that might be a reminder, because obviously checking council emails, I know, is not something that you can necessarily do every single day, but at the start of a week or at the end of a week, what's happening this week or what's happening next via text might be an idea. That's just a seed to plant. And also, Councillor McDougall's already raised it, but having some kind of a scheme whereby by request members can have a device. I believe Councillor Manning picked up a refurbished device, and it's absolutely perfect for the kind of thing that a councillor needs. And when you compare the cost of providing a device over a whole period of office against the time and the resources to do all of the printing, it works out cheaper to provide a good quality device for the period of time that a councillor is a member. And getting a good quality device, they can actually last a number of years. I've got an iPad that's probably about 8 years old and it's perfect. So that's maybe something, as Councillor McDougall raised, more and more councils are doing, and we wouldn't want any person to feel at a disadvantage because they either do not own by choice or cannot afford a personal device. It may well be that the council should be providing it where it's needed.
May I defer that to finance and general purposes?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Would you make sure that that as an item on the agenda for it, please? So we are going to continue with it and we'll review, say, January. Is that okay with everyone? So to receive the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan report from Mendip District Council. Is this for us to note?
Yes, Your Worship, because this consultation very much is a tick box exercise, and it was actually considered by the Resilience Committee yesterday evening, and we will be giving some feedback, but it's a report very much in a finished state that Mendip District Council have provided for us, but they have asked for comments, but it won't be changed. Yes, so we will submit those comments, but the report won't be amended or changed, as Mendip District Council see it as a completed piece of work.
I see that. I would assume all councillors have received it as electronically.
Yes, it was in the meeting papers electronically for this evening, a presentation. There is a more detailed report. It's 120 odd pages long. If anyone would like it, you're very welcome to it.
Electronically.
Yes, yes,
So
please.
to consider the cost of the high street shop Christmas tree. Oh, sorry, Councillor Cook.
That's right. Thanks very much, John. Yeah, just one question. I was looking at that, the cycling paths, and then I don't know what happened, but it kind of all just went off my screen. But what I did see was on the road to Launchley, as you go out of Glastonbury on the right-hand side, the turning there, the 2 mile stretch, was that's going to become a cycling route.
No, it's already there.
It is a cycle route.
It's not going to be a dedicated cycling route, is it?
Wells.
Yeah, that works. Is that a dedicated cycling route? That's going to become dedicated, so no.
It is already.
Drive down.
It's number 3, it's a national one.
But it's road as well.
Yeah. So it is road as well, yeah. So it's not this thing.
It's not just bikes, no.
No, that's what I'm concerned about.
Oh, it's not just bikes, but it is the national route. That's where it's already been agreed.
Yeah,
Sorry, Councillor.
Lincoln to Exeter.
My understanding was that particular road, they did look at actually making it bike only at one stage, but that got turned down. So
that's right.
It is.
Yeah, thanks.
So essentially, the document is a supporting document should this council wish to pay for anything to happen with cycling in our area. We have the supporting document there that we can give to the funders that we may wish to go to. That's really its purpose. So thank you. We now move to consider the cost of the high street shop Christmas trees. Conrad, would you like to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. So there's some information up on the screen. This council provides, generally for a charge, a 6 or 7 foot Christmas tree to be hung at a 45-degree angle on high street shops who choose it. Up to 2019, there were 2 options. A tree only was £72 and a tree and lights was £84. During the pandemic, they were offered for free. In 2021, the trees were £33.33 plus VAT, but we charged £40. Our staff with an electrician erect the trees before this year, the carnival. So our question as officers to the council is, how much this year do you consider is fair to charge for them? I met with Jackie Boyce, the town hall manager, today, and her and I were suggesting £60 including VAT. That's up to members.
Councillor Don Francesca.
How much do they cost us? That is actually what they cost us.
Is that right?
No, that's not what they cost us to purchase, but in terms of the purchase price, the time to put them up, and the pat testing of the lights, providing the lights and the electrician to put the lights on, this isn't a commercial venture. Even back when £84 was charged, we didn't make money on this. And then obviously during the pandemic, they're offered for free, and then they're offered at a subsidised rate in 2021. So our question is, how much does this council consider as fair to charge for
Conor, could you give us an idea, was that at cost, the £33 plus VAT?
No, that was quite heavily subsidised. When £84, so £70 plus VAT, because obviously the VAT, the business can claim that back, but we obviously pay that to HMRC. So we actually received the £70. In terms of purchasing it, providing the lights, putting it up, etc., we have never made money on providing Christmas trees.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ronnie Dougal, Councillor Henderson.
Yes, I remember with the Town Deal Fund when we did the town centre thing, that part of that was actually buying new LED Christmas lights.
Yes.
So that it would be cheaper with the electrician for the putting on of the lights and everything. And so presumably that's how the tree and lights can come down from 84 to 60 because we've got the new LED lights. Is that correct?
It's cheaper for the shops to run them because they provide their own electricity. However, it's not cheaper for us to have the electrician put them up because it still requires pat testing and their time to put them up. Our suggestion of £60 including VAT, which means it's £50 excluding VAT, was that it was deemed a suitable jump that the town council didn't lose a lot of money again, but it wasn't a jump straight up to pre-pandemic levels. It was considered by officers fair, but it's a decision for the council.
So could you Before we go to Councillor Henderson, is there a recommendation from the clerk's office then?
My recommendation would be to set the price at £60 including VAT. So that's £50 excluding VAT.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I was just going to propose that if the town clerk and the office are happy with £60 inclusive of VAT, that we agree with that advice.
Anyone wish to speak against that? Can we all show of hands in favour?
I have that as a majority.
Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Can I just check, sorry, Your Worship, who seconded that? I didn't actually note that down.
Councillor
Thank you,
McDougall.
Councillor McDougall.
So now we have a World Heritage Status Advisory Committee that we agreed to establish, but the meeting where that was supposed to be populated was unfortunately September. So we didn't do it, so it's come to this committee. Anyone wish to be on the advisory committee for World Heritage Status, please show your hand now.
I've got councillors Roney Dougal, Cousins, Cottle, Henderson, Manning, Oakden, Lockerbandoo, Price, White, Don Francesco, Smythe, and McDougall. Yes, you were first on the list, Serena.
Thank you very much, councillors. We now move on to consider setting a date for an extraordinary meeting.
Sorry, could I ask you for the World Heritage Advisory Committee to set the first date for that meeting as well? Because otherwise now you've got members,
sorry.
Still no meeting.
That wasn't on my agenda here. Oh, yes, it was. There we are. Yeah,
Set a date.
I'd written over it. Sorry. So, councillors, start of at 10.
I've got my
Thursday the 17th of November.
Thursdays are usually good.
Yes. Is that a date that majority could make? 7 p.m. Thursday 17th.
That'll probably work for me, because Thursdays are usually
7 p.m.
day off.
7 p.m.
All day for me that day.
17th of November.
Thursday, 17th.
Thursday, 17th.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. Thank you
And
very
we'll
much.
find that all on our, come through on electronically to us, yeah?
Yes, it will, Councillor Cottle, yes.
Thank you very much.
Recording it, World Heritage.
World Heritage Status Advisory Committee. So we now move on to consider a date for the extraordinary meeting to discuss antisocial behaviour in Glastonbury's High Street.
Oh, going back just one thing, Terry Nuttall was very interested in the World Heritage site.
Let's add him to the committee.
So if he could be added to
Yeah.
the committee, I know he's very keen on it.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you, I've added Councillor Napper's name.
Thank you. So, councillors, any proposed date for that? Councillor Smythe.
I'd like to suggest that we invite the police to speak on this in the context of the letter that we're going to write and ask them to come to the next meeting.
There is no next meeting, though. We have to set an extraordinary meeting date first, don't we? So we need to have some suggestions for meetings. But it is an extraordinary meeting of this council to discuss the one item, which is the antisocial behaviour in Glastonbury High Street, alluded to tonight, various incidents that have happened.
19th of October. Is that too early?
It may be, if we do wish the police to come. So 19th has got, you've got youth committee that evening.
Aggro Eco in the day at 11 o'clock.
Sorry?
I was just saying on that 11 o'clock that morning is the agro-ecological thing, the 5 mile food trail.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How about the 20th? The 20th, we've got World Heritage meeting that day.
Well, 17th November.
So, councillors, when you mention a date, do say which month we're talking about.
Thursday, 20th.
So that's Thursday next week. We
We won't have enough time to summons, will we? Oh, no?
Yes, you would, Your Worship, because we need 3 clear days. 3 clear days for Thursday could be Monday the 17th, Tuesday the 18th, Wednesday the 19th. So as long as it's a one-item agenda, very easy to get out. As long as I got it out by Friday this week, it would be a meeting that you could hold.
Councillor, Councillor Mann.
Further to what Councillor Smythe said, that I had it in my mind the intention was to ask a senior police officer along to the meeting. So I don't know whether it needs to be an iterative process because we need to find out their availability because otherwise,
That's right.
especially if it's short notice.
I think short notice might be an issue. Could I ask Thursday the 3rd of November?
Neighbourhood planning.
Sorry, I didn't have that in my diary. Any other suggestions?
That Wednesday the 2nd.
Yeah, we have the town deal.
Development day. It ends at 4 though.
Does it?
Yeah. We could do Tuesday the 2nd.
Wednesday the
2nd.
I certainly can't do Monday.
Tuesday the 1st?
Tuesday the 1st would be better for me.
property and assets.
So
I now see why we're very busy in the office at the moment.
is Wednesday the 2nd free in the diary?
I don't have the diary on me, but I've got no meetings booked, and we're generally the only people who use this room in the evening. So I would say, yes, it probably is if you wanted to call it for Wednesday the 2nd of November at 7 p.m.
We're never going to get everybody there. If we can...
Planning board.
Hmm?
We have planning board, don't we?
Well, yes, we have. That's our extra planning board's been stuck in there. We've got the one tomorrow night and then we've got the one on the 2nd.
Can I suggest that there may well be a policeman, some police available on following next Thursday? Could it be a to be confirmed?
Next Thursday?
Yeah, which we
The
came up with
20th.
first. Do we know what days they're actually on duty? Should do.
Well, I thought... So, Chancellors, I believe that we were hoping to speak to silver level or above.
Okay.
We don't... The local sergeant isn't the person that we...
All right.
Although they're very good,
Yeah,
not the person we
sure.
speak to. Yes, Councillor.
Ask Mark Shelford to come as well, the Commissioner.
We can, of course.
May I suggest Tuesday the 6th of December?
So that's, sorry, isn't that not too far away?
Councillor
We've
Cook.
had antisocial behaviour in the high street a long time, so I don't know. I wonder whether waiting till December will actually impact it.
Councillor Cook.
I don't know.
Having spoken to the police, the 2 new ones last week, very amenable, very nice people. Why not those who have a clear interest in coming to that meeting, book an appointment with them to come here while they're at work? We're not going to have a long meeting, are we? Because we know there's an antisocial problem, and the problem has been lack of policing.
Well, I
we're
think
slowly getting it.
I think we need to speak to an inspector or above. I think that's the level that we need to.
Well, we need to fact gather first as well. That's what I'm saying. It's not going to be. We're not going to do it all in one day, are we?
Well,
But first of all, we can't even get a date for a meeting. So I'm just suggesting that we do something in the afternoon while we've got police here, so that we can get more information from them. Then we can take it forward.
I think that we have decided to set an extraordinary meeting of the council to discuss antisocial behaviour on the high street, and that the intent was to ask a more senior police officer to attend that. I think that the suggestion for the Police and Crime Commission to come is a very worthy suggestion too. And I feel that we need to give them a few weeks. I would think December might be too far away, but we did have a couple of suggestions that were almost viable, didn't we? One being in the week of the 1st and 2nd of November, wasn't it? So was it the 2nd of November, Wednesday the 2nd of November?
That's no good to me, Lindsay or Steve.
Was the first was property and assets.
Property and assets.
What about the third then, the Thursday?
Neighbourhood plan.
Okay.
Good grief.
The 10th, what about the 10th of November? That's a Thursday. Anything on that day?
Yes, Paul.
Could I suggest we give them the police 2 or 3 dates and let them choose?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually free on Thursday, the 10th of November. It's a blank page.
I'm free on Thursday, the 10th.
Well, I'm at work that evening, but I don't have to be here if that is amenable to the police and everyone. Can we put Thursday the 10th of November down as an option? Can we put Wednesday the 2nd, I'm afraid, down as an option, because it is? And can we put October the 20th down as an option, as people feel that there may or may not be police in the area that might be able to attend? So we give them 3 options: 20th of October, 2nd of November, and Wednesday the 2nd of November.
No,
that's an option.
Wednesday the 2nd of November as an option, and Thursday the 10th of November as an option. And then we see who can come. Thank you very much. We now move on to appoint a council representative to Glastonbury Football Club. I'm not looking at any councillor in particular, but Councillor Manning is in my view.
I'd be happy to attend.
So, anyone wish to propose Councillor Manning?
I'll propose Councillor Manning.
And seconded? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Even Councillor Manning, so that's good. Anybody against? So thank you very much. The football club, Simon, I'm sure, will be delighted. Excellent news. To receive county council.
May I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So the football club were asking if we would be able to give them any sort of money to help them. Now I hear there's Section 106 money is going to Abbey Park Care for the Youth Provision. I was wondering, is there any other Section 106 or any other money coming in that we might be able to help the football club with?
It could be. Yes, I think we need to investigate what is the legal status of the football club, just in case there's any restrictions on money going directly to a club, if you see what I mean. It might be
business.
To a business, yeah. If that might be worth checking out. If that is the case, then we may need to ask them about specific areas of green space in the town that a Section 106 money could help improve, but it would be for the general advantage of the community or something like that. Those sorts of words, because the money is supposed to be for the community to benefit, not just one group within it. I think that the football club probably needs to perhaps write a proposal to Glastonbury Town Council. That might be something which Paul might be able to say to them about how the sort of help they might need, and then we could think about where they might get it. It might not be us, but it might be other parts of our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. So reports from county councillors, briefly.
I'm the only one here. Be very briefly. I think you've all received a PDF from me today. That covers most of the sort of dry stuff that's going on in the council. I can't remember if there was anything on there about buses. We've been supporting the buses. There's not a lot of Glastonbury activity at this moment in time, because I think, as you can understand, there is something a little bit larger looming, and everybody's talking about that. And we had to have a emergency meeting last week because of Taunton Town Council to form it's very strange that Taunton never had a town council. So we've had to vote to give them a town council. So that was basically the last one. So if there's any questions, just let me know. Yeah, Lindsay got one, right.
So on buses,
yes.
Is there any chance that the new county council will change to owning the bus network rather than franchising it?
Franchising, we haven't got the money. Let's be quite truthful about this. But as far as I know, all things are under consideration regarding the bus, because we we, how can I put this? It's a high priority within the administration is the bus services and keeping them going and finding innovative ways to move it forward, because there are lots of rural communities within Somerset, as you're obviously aware, and Glastonbury is quite lucky. We're fairly well serviced. Yeah, it is expensive, that's the problem. So, yeah, you can sure. If you've got any bright ideas, anybody around here who want to put forward about that, let me have them, and I'll make sure they get to the right person. Okay? Because it is important that we keep it going. In writing, please. Sorry.
Yes, I was going to say the Somerset Bus Partnership met again yesterday, was it? Yes, it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so many meetings. And they have got lots of proposals and things that they want to happen. Shall I make sure they get?
Yeah, make sure they get me, because you know there's a person there who feeds me most of the stuff, and so if that comes to me, that would be really good. But also the town council about the tour bus idea as well. That needs to go through here. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for County Councillor? Councillors, Councillor Cottle, as you're standing and you're a district council, perhaps you'd like to carry on with the.
Oh dear, district council. That's another one that's a bit awkward. We've had, I suppose, the one most important thing that affected Glastonbury over the last month, where Joel attended as well, was the PSPO. Yeah, that was passed by the cabinet. And whether we think it's a good idea or a bad idea, it was passed. It's in operation now, but we've got to see if the enforcement actually works with it and see what happens. I'm not happy about people, so there's parts of it that don't make me a happy man, let's put it that way, but I understand why it's being done. So we'll see. But I also have the thing about the empty caravans that are left around. Why aren't they just got rid of straight away? And then that would make life a lot easier, because there is the problem that went off this, whether we like it or not, that there was some kind of organised thing going on there, and it's not good for the people who are, in a difficult situation. So we'll see. We just got to wait and see on it. That was a major thing really for me for district, and got to wait and see. Yes, I can see the questions were flowing.
I was told that the PSPO is not going to be enforced until April.
I don't know the date when it gets enforced. If I did, I'll let you know. I'll check. There might be reasons for that. Mike?
I was also, if you would ask Ian Glover, the enforcement officer, why the caravans aren't taken away, we'll have a long explanation to do with ownership.
What did he say? Who is the ownership?
Ownership.
It's to do with ownership. Councillor, do speak up, because people are listening to us on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I certainly can't hear you. If I can't hear you, they can't on there. Is your microphone working? Yeah, there you go.
As it is.
No. So what were you saying about the ownership of the caravans?
That's the reason why they can't get rid of them. Is it?
Yeah, if nobody lives in them and they're just left derelict on the side of the road.
All I'm saying is ask him. I don't know. End of conversation. Ask him.
I will, because I don't think it's acceptable. I think if they're empty and derelict, rather than somebody coming and chucking a match under them.
He'd love to get rid of them, but he can't. Okay.
Well, I'll check that one out, because that sounds a bit odd.
These must be the rented ones.
Yeah, Indra?
Yes, there was a consultation that was done not long ago. Do we know how much of what the results of the consultation and how much that was taken into consideration with when they made their deliberation?
Yeah, I can get you a copy of that if you like. I can do that for you, no problem. I think John might already have one.
If I can access my emails, yes.
Never mind. Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, we can deal with that.
So, Councillor McDougall, would you like to go now with your councillor report?
There's going to be, lost my thread now. Call for evidence. Are we talking about that now or later? And call for evidence. Yes. And I was going to say the evidence should be about, yes, the dumped caravans, because I believe there is some evidence available. And also we should ask for evidence from the land dwelling community as well, because there have been accusations of racism.
Of racism?
I've heard accusations of racism talked of, so, you know, it should be a balanced call for evidence.
So, Councillor, would you like to give your council report?
Yes, I've sent it in. I presume everybody has seen. Talking about PSBO, the Elections Act, quite a bit of complicated stuff about that, photo ID required and things like that. And quite a bit on trees and what Mendip is supporting on tree planting, which actually is mostly Somerset Rivers Authority is funding it, and they don't seem to get a lot of credit normally, but I've realised that they're doing the big part of it, and Mendip is also doing perhaps a smaller part. And the other thing I wanted to say is Brittany Road alterations are going to be done by Christmas, I'm told.
That's that one for you to mention.
Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. Not much to report. We had a full Mendip council meeting on the Monday of the youth provision meeting, which is maybe why it wasn't quiet that night. A lot of financial reports, etc., etc. And the only other thing we've done Mendip-wise is, as I said earlier, Deputy Mayor and myself went to an LCN consultation meeting in Wells, mostly attended by Wells councillors, etc. And the only thing I would say, or the most important thing I would say, that if you want to find out any more about LCNs, is go onto the new somersetcouncil.com website. Any information as it is will be on there, and you can register and you can put your views forward. And only one other thing, for several months now, the residents of Fairfield Gardens have been trying to get permission to plant a tree outside the drainage pond by Morrison's supermarket, and they were finally given permission about a month ago, and it was actually planted on Sunday.
Hey, great.
That's good.
So, councillors, I have nothing to add to the meetings that have already been discussed, but there is a Somerset Bus partnership that's been mentioned, and I've been asked to distribute these amongst councillors, which are from our own branch of the Somerset Bus Partnership. They would like to encourage councillors to take the bus, and not only take the bus, but if you have a mobile device of any description, to take your photograph as a selfie of yourself on the bus, which you can then send to the Climate Emergency Committee via Councillor Rona Dougal, be able to take those photographs, I'm sure.
No, via Susanna Clements, she's the one who's fielding them all.
Do we all have her email address?
It will be on the Climate Emergency Advisory Committee because she's part of that.
So
you could field them, yeah.
So, councillors, to take your selfie and to send it to Susanna Clements, who is part of the Climate Emergency Advisory Committee. If you don't have her email address, you can always send it to Melissa, who is clerk to that committee, who I'm sure will pass it on. Or the one on the, and also within that is the little booklet that the Climate Emergency Advisory Group has produced. Thank you. Any questions for district councillors? So we now move on to receive a verbal update from the representatives of outside bodies. Councillor White.
Thank you. Briefly on the town deal, you're probably all aware that all of the business cases for the 11 projects have been accepted by central government. And Mendip did a news release that they sent around. And then the other thing, which is actually quite exciting, is Bridie's Farm. They have finally completed the purchase of their 2 fields.
Great,
that's good.
Porchester Drove. So that was Wednesday or Thursday, I think.
Regenerative farming project.
So they're on their way. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other reports from outside bodies? There was somebody who wished to speak to this. Yes.
Fair trade. Yes, so I'm going to say about that. Yes, we had a Zoom meeting, and we're proposing to go up and down High Street and find out who is stocking fair trade products. So far, that's it. There's a film that they're recommending we show, but I might do it through St Ben's Church because, yes, that's it.
Thank you very much. Any other reports from outside bodies? Mayor's announcements. It's been an extraordinary time, but we need to remember that on the 11th of November, it is Armistice Day, and on the 13th of November, it is Remembrance Sunday. Remembrance Sunday, new councillors, is a day when Glastonbury expects every councillor to attend. It's not something really that we look kindly on people not attending. Regardless of your views on this thing, we need to attend. Can you be at the Town Hall at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday the 13th of November?
10:30.
Yeah. Please dress accordingly. It is to remember those who have fallen in the wars in this country, and we will be processing. We normally process with all of the uniform groups up the High Street. It's a very orderly affair to observe the silent minute at 11 o'clock. So please attend. If you have wreaths and you wish to lay wreaths, do let Connor know who you'll be laying wreaths on behalf of, because that needs to be put into the organising of it. So that's the announcement, really. Glastonbury expects every councillor to do their duty. Communications and announcements. Any communications in that?
May I, Your Worship, just quickly make one? Just so members are aware, I'm now Glastonbury Antiquarians Limited, who run the Glastonbury Museum in the Tribunal, have asked, I accepted, and have made me a director. So obviously in any decisions where you're considering that, obviously I take no part in decision making, but I will declare it and take a view as to whether I should be in the room for those decisions. That was just for transparency. So everyone
which
knows.
organisation?
Glastonbury Antiquarians Limited, who are the limited company arm of the Antiquarian Society, and that limited company arm are the one that have the lease with English Heritage and will be running Glastonbury Museum in the Tribunal building.
Congratulations. Any other announcements? Correspondence?
I've got no items of correspondence to highlight for members, Your Worship.
Press releases.
There are a couple of releases from previous meetings that I've delayed because, for instance, on the World Heritage Status Advisory Committee, because we didn't have a membership or a meeting date. I might wait to release that after it meets for the first time, but that is one that was a previous action that hasn't happened because I didn't have much to say. But I don't know if members feel anything that was discussed or decided tonight is worthy of a news release at all.
It doesn't appear so. So we will move on to actions arising from the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have got an action to make sure that Finance and General Purposes are aware, and also that Street Volunteer Driver Service are aware of the process to apply for a grant and to perhaps how it's factored into the budget if its members wish. I have an action to investigate the old High Street benches. Jackie Boyce has actually texted me during the meeting, and she believes that Mendip District Council have them at one of their depots, and also to look into citing the bike racks. I'm going to look into the letting shortfall. Again, Jackie Boyce has been in touch with me. That is again because invoicing is slightly behind. I'm going to write to the police regards the fact that they did not attend nor submit a report for this evening. I'm going to extend the council's thanks to Kew Gardens for their donation of the Holy Thorn and for looking after it. I'm going to make sure that staff and committee have an item on their agenda to consider staff and capacity for the neighbourhood plan. I'm going to make sure that Finance and General Purposes have an item on their agenda to consider having a budget line to provide devices for councillors. And I'm going to chase the Section 106 monies due to Glastonbury and investigate whether the football club as an organisation would be eligible for any potential spend.
Thank you. Councillors, if you cast your mind back to the beginning of the meeting, we honoured one of our previous mayors. Maybe that is worthy of a news release. Council honours memory of Mayor Denise Abbott at meeting. We could perhaps ask Tim Hopkinson Ball if he could supply some of the words that he spoke, and we may have a photograph of her that we could send to the press. I think that would be a very nice release from the council meeting. Thank you very much. And yes, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
And I mentioned on the agenda, so this meeting is the 9th, but it's the 8th.
Right, I'm going to have to go and find my computer to do bloody council
It
here.
says on there that the next meeting is on the 9th, when in actual fact it's on the...
Paul? Oh, it's busy on here. Where did you buy that one? I'm going to buy an extra kit and council, I think.
Tuesday, 8. Oh, great, I'd forgotten all about it.
Pixel book, so it runs on internet.
Because either of my council ones won't work here.
This is
I won't be here.
10 hours battery.
That's
pretty good.